Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday, April 8th, 2026 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. For those of you who are here with us in person, paper copies of our agenda are available on the table back by the door. I believe Robin also made you all coffee in case anybody needs a little caffeine boost. And there's also a full packet available on our website with all agenda items included there. Reviewing our full agenda first, we have a pretty packed one this evening, and we'll start with a few proclamations to kick us off, after which we'll move to our consent agenda. We have 8 items on our consent agenda. After that, we will move on to general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we do apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the county commission, and we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes if you are comfortable doing so, and please address your comments directly to the commission. We will hear from people in person first, then we'll look to our Zoom meeting attendees. Please use the raise your hand function online if you wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the commission during our meeting do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try to get specific questions answered. After general public comment concludes, we'll move on to our regular business agenda for tonight. There are a total of 5 regular business items this evening. For each action item, we will hear from staff first and/or an applicant who might be with us, followed by questions from the commission directly, and then we will open up the floor for public comment that is relevant to that item. Once public comment is concluded on each agenda item, we bring that back to the commission for further discussion and a vote on any action items. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. Moving right into our proclamations. As I mentioned, we've got 3 of them. And first up is Commissioner Anderson, and I'll let her introduce the topic and read the proclamation for us. And then a quick reminder for anybody who's here for one of those proclamations. Afterwards, we'll invite you up if you've got any further words to share, and then provide you with a signed copy by all commissioners. Commissioner Anderson?
Right. First, we have Lawrence Douglas County Public Health National Health Week. Whereas the first full week of April 2026 is recognized as National Public Health Week, an annual observance that highlights the vital role public health plays in protecting and improving community well-being. And whereas the 2026 National Public Health Week theme, Ready, Set, Action, invites communities to reflect on progress made and to take the next steps needed to create a healthier future. And whereas Douglas County embraces health with a capital H, a vision of well-being that goes beyond healthcare to include the policies, systems, and community conditions that allow all residents to feel safe, supported, connected, and able to thrive, recognizing that health is built in our neighborhoods, schools, workplaces, and public spaces. And whereas Lawrence Douglas County Public Health, in collaboration with city and county departments, community organizations, schools, healthcare providers, and residents, leads ongoing work through the community health improvement process to identify shared priorities and strengthen the health of the community. And whereas these community-driven efforts are guided by the 10 essential public health services, strengthening how Douglas County understands community needs, promotes and protects health, supports prevention, prepares for and responds to public health challenges, engages partners, and continually improves public health systems, helping build a resilient and thriving community for the future. And whereas National Public Health Week provides an opportunity to recognize and thank public health professionals for their dedication and service while encouraged continued collaboration and shared responsibility for community health. Now therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of April 6, 2026 as National Public Health Week. And I encourage all Douglas County residents to take part in this week by supporting Lawrence Douglas County Public Health and public health professionals and the communities that they serve. Adopted on this 8th day of April, 2026.
Do we have guests from Public Health who'd like to come up and share some more information?
Evening, Commissioners. Jonathan Smith, Executive Director of Lawrence Douglas County Public Health. You had a packed agenda, so I will just say thank you for all that you all do to contribute to the health of our community. Thank you to everybody in this room, everyone watching, because this week is like a party for us at Lawrence Douglas County Public Health. We celebrate our public health professionals all the time, but this is time where we get to have a little bit of fun. And the theme, as you mentioned in the proclamation, it's Ready, Set, Action. But at Lawrence Douglas County Public Health, we made up our own theme related to that. And it's you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. And we stay ready all the time. So wanted to shout out our team of public health superheroes that we have. If you think of all the services that we do, from childcare licensing to WIC, informatics, disease investigation clinic, I could go on, family support. It's pretty amazing to think that we have just under 40 FTEs there that do this for the whole county. So I'm fortunate enough to be the coach that gets to throw up alley-oops to this team and they slam dunk it. And just want to say thank you to them and thank you to you all.
Thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate it. And we do like to stay ready. It's a good preparedness ethos for all county citizens. We've got this proclamation for you and we appreciate all your work. All right. Next up is Commissioner Willie's got a proclamation to read for us. I'll let her kick it off.
For Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children are the nation's most valuable members, as well as our nation's most valuable resources, helping to shape the future of Douglas County. And whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects throughout an individual's lifetime and impact future generations of their family. And whereas childhood trauma includes abuse and neglect, is a serious problem affecting every community in the United States, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. And whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, and developmental well-being of children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas children who live in families with access to concrete economic and social support are less likely to experience abuse and neglect. And whereas we acknowledge that in order to solve the public health issue of abuse and neglect, we must work together to change hearts and mindsets through storytelling and sharing, center the needs of families, break down bias and barriers, and inspire action from expected and unexpected partners in prevention. And whereas prevention remains the best defense in our children and our families. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, adopted this 8th day of April 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. We have representatives to come share more information with us. All right, thank you for being here. Make sure to press that button so that the light turns green on the mic and then you're live.
Good evening. My name's Paula Martin. I'm a co-founder and board chair of the Children's Advocacy Center of Douglas County, also known as the CAC for short. I'm joined tonight by Dakota Loomis on our board, who is the district attorney, and Lieutenant Rita Fulton Mays, also a board member. And April, as you said, is Child Abuse Prevention Month, when we recognize the importance
Paula, can you make sure you talk right into the microphone? Sorry, just for the record. Thank you.
of families and communities working together to prevent child abuse and neglect. When law enforcement or child protective services believe a child may be experiencing abuse, the child is brought to the CAC, a safe, child-focused environment by a caregiver or other safe adult. At the CAC, the children tell their story only once to a trained interviewer who knows the right questions to ask in a way that does not re-traumatize the child. Then a team that includes medical professionals, law enforcement, mental health, prosecution, child protective services, victim advocacy, and other professionals make decisions together about how to help the child based on that interview. CACs offer access and support for therapy and medical exams, plus court advocacy, case management, and other services. The CAC coordinates this multidisciplinary team response to child abuse, and all work together to support and improve the journey for a child and family. These professionals work together in a collaborative approach that results in effective, efficient, and improved child-centered outcome and leads to better prosecutions of the alleged perpetrator. Over the last few months, the CAC launched an on-site trauma therapy program to better serve these children. It eliminates barriers such as cost and transportation, and the expansion significantly increases access to care, ensuring that children can receive timely, consistent, and specialized mental health centers in a safe and familiar environment. The program is staffed by 3 licensed mental health therapists who provide trauma-based treatment to these children. Next month, in May of 2026, the CAC will further expand its clinical offerings by implementing problematic sexual behavior, cognitive behavior therapy, that's a mouthful, for children 7 to 14 who are exhibiting inappropriate sexual behaviors. This evidence group program model, which is 22 weeks, actively involves caregivers, equipping them with tools to create safe environments, reinforce appropriate behaviors, and support long-term success. This is the first of its kind in Douglas County, and statistics show that of the families who go through this 22-week program, 98% will not offend as adults. The CAC board would like to express our gratitude to the Douglas County Commissioners and the county for the ongoing financial support that greatly contributes to our ability to provide all of our services free of charge to our child victims and their families. Today, we are here to represent the Douglas County community, to honor the courage of the children we serve, and encourage all caring adults to report concerns of child maltreatment. Thank you very much. And if anyone wants a tour, just let us know.
Thank you, Paula. We really appreciate the work of CAC, and I've got this proclamation for you to take back with you. Thank you so much. All right, and that brings us to our third proclamation for the evening, which Commissioner Kelly is going to share with us.
This is a proclamation for National County Government Month for April 2026. Whereas the nation's 3,069 counties serving more than 330 million Americans provide essential services to create healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. And whereas counties, as intergovernmental partners, enact local, state, and federal programs to address the needs of all residents. And whereas Douglas County and all counties take pride in our responsibility to protect and enhance the health, well-being, and safety of our residents in efficient and cost-effective ways. And whereas the nation is celebrating 250 years of independence this year, and counties have a long and rich history of serving residents. And whereas each year since 1991, the National Association of Counties has encouraged counties across the country to elevate awareness of county responsibilities, programs, and services. And whereas Douglas County serves as the community by maintaining roads, parks, and bridges, providing public safety and court services, keeping land records, preserving our history, conducting elections, advocating for sustainable future, and supporting behavioral health and human services. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Douglas County Commissioners hereby proclaim April 2026 as National County Government Month. We invite elected officials, community partners, employees, and residents to participate in Douglas County Discovery Day on April 21st from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Douglas County Fairgrounds. Adopted this 8th day, April 2026.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. And then it looks like Carrie Britt's going to come share a little bit more with us.
Commissioners, this is Carrie Britt. I'm the Communications and Media Coordinator for Douglas County. We're super excited about Discovery Day. It's a great event where we get to connect with our community in a fun way. We'll have lots of touch-a-truck activities, interactive games, and lots of information about our services. And I encourage everyone to come out and join us on April 21st at the fairgrounds. And we have flyers in the back if anyone would like to take one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. And thank you to all of our awesome county employees who keep things running 24/7, 365. All right, commissioners, that moves us on to our consent agenda. I want to check and see if anybody's wishes to remove anything for further discussion or questions of staff.
2.2 and 2.4.
2.2 and 2.4 from Commissioner Dorsey to be pulled. Okay, any other commissioners? Okay. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to pull anything from our consent agenda for questions? All right, seeing none. Any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission for a motion on the remaining items.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great, those pass unanimously, and we'll go back to item 2.2. Commissioner Dorsey, do you have some questions or requests that you would like to state?
Yeah, well, this is a first for me and maybe for some of the rest of you regarding a fence viewing, a law that was passed in 1868. And the memo was, I think, pretty clear. I noticed one of the parties in the audience, and I wanted to give them an opportunity to say anything they wanted to. And then I had a couple of questions for staff or commissioners regarding future fence viewings.
I think Commissioner Dorsey, if you want to ask questions of staff first, ask any questions you have, and then I'll open it up for public comment, and then
Okay.
we can have some discussion as a commission.
Right. Under 2.03, 29-203, compensation and expenses, it says the fence viewer, who is normally the county commission in rural counties, shall be entitled to receive $7.50 per day as full compensation for the review. I understand we hired an attorney who may have charged more than $7.50, and I was wondering if we had a rough estimate of what the total bill is.
I don't. I can get it for you. If you'd want to table it until I get that, we'll have to table it for next week.
Do you have a guess?
I think last time we spent, when we did this, about a couple $1,000s.
Okay. Well, I just have I guess my first concern is that we may be spending $2,000 to $3,000 on a $5,000 issue, which seems out of whack to me. I'm just wondering if other commissioners would like to be the fence viewers in the future to save money. I think this only comes up once every 7 or 8 years.
Actually, about every 3 to 4, but yeah.
Oh,
How many fence viewing have we had in the past?
Last one we did was 2022.
Okay.
And before that, it was probably 2018. So like I say, every 3 to 4 years, but it's random. It's whenever someone requests it.
And when did we move to using Mr. Hurd?
In 2022.
Okay. And was there a reason that we moved to using Mr. Hurd?
The commissioners decided after they had done the last fence viewing that it was cumbersome and that they'd rather have a professional attorney who understands the statutes do that interpretation for them.
Okay.
I viewed a few fences in my day. And and so it's a strange law. It kind of goes back, but it's really, it's a little bit more than that. It's in terms of, managing the receipts and the finances and just making sure that like all of the liabilities are taken care of. So no, I don't love spending money on that either. But hopefully having precedent can be shared with folks who would like to have their fence viewed in the future and say, this is how it's turned out in the past. Do you still want to go through that process? And that may also kind of solve some of that too.
Commissioners, does this discussion so far raise any other questions for staff about
No.
this item? Okay.
If we come to a consensus, we don't want to be the fence viewers.
Well, no, I don't think we've come to any decisions, and I'm trying to walk us through a process of questions, since you pulled the item, questions about the item, and I want to open it up for public comment and see if anybody would like to offer anything about this item for us to further consider, and then we can have some more discussion and see where we might land. Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Does anybody in the audience wish to provide public comment related to the item 2.2 on the consent agenda, which is a fence viewing agenda item? Come on forward. And it looks like you'll need to press the button on the microphone so that that light turns green for you. And just please state your name and residence for the record if you're okay with that. And you've got 3 minutes.
I'm Ed Moore. I'm at 2065 North 700 Road. I am one of the parties involved in the fence. I explained everything to Mr. Hurd, how it happened, when it happened, what was said, what was agreed upon. There was no issues. I approached Richard Beam 3 years ago about replacing a fence. He was all for it. All for it. And the last time, numerous times, and the last time I spoke to him, he simply told me, I am a man of my word. I will pay half of it. I give him 6 months to pay his half. And I finally sent him an invoice for his half. And that's when he turned and went backwards. So I told Mr. Hurd the whole history of the whole thing. And it's in the records. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there anybody else here who would like to provide public comment on this item? All right, see no one else. Anybody online, Sarah? Okay, close public comment and bring this back to the commission for any further questions that might have brought up or comments and discussion.
First, I want to apologize for jumping the gun with kind of my thoughts out there and being a little flippant meaning I've seen a lot of fences. I've built a lot of fences, but I've not been involved with this process before, which is really a legal dispute, settling a legal dispute, which is why an attorney was involved, et cetera. So I think when the law was created, $7 probably went a long ways towards, it might even have been similar, like it was $7 to resolve a $10 issue at the time or something like that. But so, but it really is the way the statute is laid out, and it is a legal process. And I'm more glad to do it right than to do it cheap. But I don't know that we'll see another one in my time here either.
I'm happy to make some comments on the process, but I'd like to vote on the item first, and then we can talk, and we can either do that during miscellaneous or we can do it right here. This is done, so I don't know that we want to adjust that, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Commissioner Kelly, and I think we could spend a little bit of time here talking about a process, but I think I might be more interested in us tabling that question and idea as a commission for a later time, and that this is the precedent and process we have established, albeit fairly recent, and we have a completed report and analysis and recommendation that I think it's important for us to move forward with, given all of those circumstances, and I'm certainly happy to entertain further discussion at a later time about that. So with that, I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the recommendation of fence viewer and determine both parties are responsible for one half of the fence determined to cost $5,067.52.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Commissioner Dorsey, I'm going to keep just a pin in that conversation and move on to the next agenda item that you asked to pull from the consent agenda. I muted myself. That was item 2.4. Do you have some questions you want to ask of staff?
Yes, well, my main question is, did we check with any local dealers on the price of the truck to make sure we're getting the best price? And if equal to Kansas City, I would rather spend the money in Douglas County than somewhere else.
In the panel and can answer that question. I think to your second question, we do not have a local preference policy. If the commission would like to establish one, I think we need to go through that process and determine if we want a local preference policy and how that would be put together. So at what point how is it only if the price is equal? Is it how much more? So I would say that would be an item for a later discussion. But Chad, if you want to answer this specific item, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Chad Voigt, Director of Public Works. Yes, with this truck purchase, as with all of our trucks, we are using the master agreement from the Johnson County area. And our fleet manager has worked with the city of Olathe, the city of Lenexa, and others over in Johnson County to come up with a set of specs for the trucks that work for us and then put that out with a request for bids for this master agreement. And that happened a couple of years ago. It was updated for this year. And the local dealer in town, all of the dealers are invited to bid on that. And the fleet manager actually made trips over to them a couple of years ago to just talk through whether or not they'd be interested in being part of that bid. And they're really not, competitive. I don't want to speak for them, but they're not competitive at this level with this type of vehicle. Olathe Ford has really kind of cornered that market. So you may hear something else from them, but that's what we're finding as far as looking for bids. This is a master agreement. It's giving us a truck with the specs that we need. We're able to pick and choose some options that fit the equipment we put on it. And then the price is very, very good for this truck. I don't think you'll find anything like that if you were to go to dealers to try to get a match or something. And so, we're seeing this as a really great approach. It'd be great to be able to buy it here in town, but man, Olathe Ford is selling a lot of fleet vehicles, and we're able to capitalize on that and get a great deal from them.
Any other questions, Commissioner Dorsey? Other commissioners have any questions? Okay, thank you, Chad. With that, we'll open this item up for public comment. Anybody in the audience wish to provide public comment on this agenda item? No takers? Okay. No virtual hands, Sarah's telling me. So we'll close public comment and bring this back for any further comments if anybody has one or a motion.
Happy to make a motion. I move to authorize the board chair to execute the attached contract with Shawnee Mission Ford for the 2026 Ford F-550 in the amount of $75,711, and the attached contract with American Equipment Company for installation of a flatbed spreader and plow in the amount of $63,129 for total vehicle cost of $138,840, and authorize staff to access the reference cooperative agreement.
A second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our consent agenda. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff. And we'll move into item 4.1, and I will turn to administration to introduce.
I'm going to invite.
Gosh, sorry. Thank you. I flipped to the next page and I skipped past general public comment, which is a huge faux pas. So thank you, Vice Chair Willie. Now is the time for general public comment about items that are not on today's agenda. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to provide general public comment at this time? No. Any virtual takers? No? Okay, thank you for that point of order. Now we will move on to item 4.1, and I will let Sarah introduce our guest and our topic.
I'm just going to invite Mallory Letts with Little Government Relations to give us an end of the session legislative update.
So, how is everybody doing tonight? As I feared would happen, thank you. My PowerPoint, as of about 4:15 this afternoon, is toast. So, the governor has vetoed lots of things, and mostly good for all of us. So I will tell you about that. But if I don't really stick to my slides, that's the reason why. So. Yes, as Sarah mentioned, we are getting ready for, thank you, veto session, which begins tomorrow. It's been a nice little break away from the legislature, but they will be back in town, hopefully for not more than 2 to 3 days. But certainly after this afternoon, they have their work cut out for them, following some significant vetoes. So with that, sorry, did you? There we go. And I think I've talked about this a little bit before, right? In recent years, we've expanded from really just focusing on true vetoes that the legislature wants to override. Pretty much anything that wasn't wrapped up at the end of the session is fair game. So I expect that even some bills that when they adjourned after midnight on March 28th that maybe didn't quite make it through the whole process, those are probably still on the table. So again, nothing is really dead. I think here is where I will kind of go off script and talk a little bit about what has transpired today. So she has now signed the budget, but has line item vetoed lots and lots of issues. And she has also vetoed sub for HB 2745, which you are all probably very happy about. This, of course, was the property tax lid. You cannot exceed 3% budget growth. So and given the fact that that only passed the House with 63 votes, probably fair to assume that they will not even attempt to override that. That all being said, though, they will be spending a significant amount of their time over the next 2 to 3 days to kind of go back to the drawing board on taxes. So it's not like the conversation is over, but certainly a positive step for local governments as we head into veto session. Sorry. Oh no, I don't know how to go back. Sorry, there we go. Okay. So this slide, yes, it is very much out of date. The one thing I will mention, SCR 1603, last week of session, they came to some type of a compromise, I guess you might call it, on this, and it eventually settled on 9% annually to cap assessed valuations. This failed in the House, and so it didn't even make it over to the Senate for a final vote. I will note that even though it technically failed in the House, they used a procedural motion to basically keep the shell of the bill so that then they'll have something to talk about in conference committee when they come back. So again, the fact that these things are quote unquote dead, there will be elements of them that will be discussed during veto session, but it is clear that these things as they are aren't going to pass. The legislature and now the governor have decisively rejected them. So moving on from, actually not moving on from property taxes, I will also note when the governor this afternoon vetoed 2745, she also announced that she has her own plan that she would like the legislature to look into. That's really probably not going to happen. But should they choose to look into that, there's kind of three prongs to it. One would include a $250 vehicle tax credit when you register your vehicle. This was a bill from earlier in the session introduced by a Democratic senator. Didn't get much traction. And then the second element to this would actually include, this should sound familiar, the $60 million fund that was in the original version of 2745 that had you stayed under the 3%, you would have then been eligible to receive. And then for the statewide 20 mills for schools, the current law exempts it up to 75,000 of your appraised value, and her proposal would essentially double that. So something new on the table for the last few days. We will see if there's any discussion on that. Moving on to some policy pieces. Couple of things that are dead and I don't anticipate will come back during veto session are some of the elections bills that we kept a really close eye on this session, ones that would move it to even years, which we've seen in the past, as well as that bill 2451 that would have prohibited any type of public resources on any ballot questions or bond issues. So those two things are dead. World Cup, a couple of things. I believe these are actually still on her desk awaiting any response. This is the transient guest tax clarification. So for folks that are staying here for whatever reason longer than 28 days, you can still collect that tax on, as well as the 23/7 sales of liquor. The nice thing about that bill is you can opt in if you choose to do so. So it initially, as it was written, it was an automatic opt-in, but you could opt out if you want. So, and then a couple of other good news items. Some housing, I would say housing victories. HB 2357 is the bill that creates a pathway for eviction expungement. This passed overwhelmingly in both chambers, and the governor has not signed that yet. She has until April 13th to do so, but we are hopeful on that. And then just this afternoon, she vetoed Senate Bill 391. Probably read a lot about this in the news. The bill, this really was targeted at the city of Lawrence by and large, but this would have prohibited, of course, cities and counties from adopting any sort of ordinance designed to protect renters. So she has vetoed that, and I don't have the vote count on the top of my head, but I think it would be difficult for them to pick up the votes needed in the House to override. So fingers crossed for you all on that one. Couple of other issues we've been following. So the motor vehicle fee bill, the number probably doesn't look familiar. It was 404 at the beginning of session, but it ended up passing in a conference committee report. Doesn't look exactly like it was when it was introduced, but ultimately allows you with county commission approval to increase the fee up to $10. That is still on the governor's desk. Again, out of date 2593, the contingency fee bill that would require Attorney General approval before you can enter into any of those. The governor just vetoed that a few moments ago. And so that only passed in the House with 79 votes, Senate 23. So I suspect that one probably safe. 197 was the home-based business bill, still awaiting a response on that. Then a couple of bills that your law enforcement folks will probably and first responders will appreciate. 2250 allows the use of expired naloxone, and that passed very overwhelmingly. Certainly anticipate the governor will approve that. And then 2365 adds kratom to Schedule 1. So two really good public health things there. One other public health item I would note that just came up in a line item was a proviso that would have required the state to follow the CDC vaccination requirements instead, and the governor has vetoed that. So I would be a bit shocked if the legislature was able to override that. And then the HERO pilot program, we've reported on this throughout the session, stands for Helping Emergency Responders Overcome PTSD. They included $1 million in the budget for this, and so it reimburses first responders for evaluation and treatment of trauma-related mental health conditions. I think that's kind of the big picture on policy items we've been covering. Again, they will be back in town, hopefully no longer than Saturday. If they pass anything else, the governor then, of course, has 10 days once it hits her desk to veto. And if she does that, there's nothing they can really do unless they call themselves back into session. So if they pass anything else this week, it's if she vetoes it, it's most likely dead. Again, we've been saying all year, it is an election year, so probably will be a little bit quieter of an interim than usual. And one last thing to keep on your radar, of course, is the expiration of the school finance formula in 2027. So that will be a very, very, very big topic over the summer and for, of course, the 2027 legislature. So again, I know you have a very busy night, so I will be brief, and I'm sorry for going off script, but hopefully good updates for you all.
Thank you, Mallory. We appreciate being some of the first to get the good news that we were hoping for. It helps the rest of the medicine go down. Commissioners, any questions for Mallory?
Yeah, I got a question. Have you been following House Bill 2444?
Yes. I was thinking somebody was probably going to ask me this. This is the corrections bills, makes some changes to sentencing, and that did pass. I believe pretty overwhelmingly on both sides. I know there were some compromises worked out so as not to penalize people who are on Senate Bill 123 and some of those community treatment programs. So Governor has not acted on that yet, but we will be watching that.
Other questions, commissioners? Okay, I guess we're in wait and see mode. Thank you, Mallory.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is a regular agenda item, so we'll open it up for public comment. Does anybody wish to provide public comment on our legislative update that we just received? All right, seeing no takers here. Sarah's telling me there's nobody virtually raised their hands. We'll close public comment, bring it back for any closing thoughts. This is not an action item, it's information only, but if commissioners have any thoughts, please share.
Just that I'm very glad to have Mallory managing this and watching this for us, and the minute by minute changes that are happening today. And I just really appreciate there was such a fast session. There was so much going on. And I'm just really glad to have eyes on it and to help us follow and understand.
I concur. All right. Thank you again, Mallory. We'll hope you're only working through Saturday and get to enjoy your Sunday and the following week. With that, we'll move on to item 4.2, and we've got our District Attorney Dakota Loomis with us, who I'll invite up to reintroduce himself, even though I just said his name for the record, and anybody else who might be here with him.
I'll just say while Dakota's coming up, administration has worked with the DA's office staff on this particular item and reviewing the statutes and so forth and how it's set up, and then also the property crime compensation fund. So appreciate the district attorney giving us some clarity here.
I think this is on. Dakota Loomis, Douglas County District Attorney. Before I start, I just wanted to mention that HB 2444 was signed on Monday. So that did go into effect. I'm here tonight to ask the commission to approve a 0.2 position on a non-benefit position to serve as the Property Crime Compensation Fund Coordinator. The Property Crime Compensation Fund is administered by the District Attorney's Office. It's approved by the commission. I believe this was approved in 2009 and went into effect in 2010. And the purpose of it is to reimburse folks who are victims of property crime in Douglas County. So misdemeanors, they can be reimbursed up to $250. For felonies, up to $500. There's a 3-member board who administers those awards, determines based upon applications who should and should not receive awards. But also in statute, there is a provision under section 19-4810 for the appointment of a property crime compensation coordinator. And the purpose of that is that there's an employee of the district attorney's office who then administers the fund, provides information to applicants, provides reports to the district court for the annual reports that need to be generated, oversees meetings, and that position is, while appointed by the district attorney's office, the district attorney, funded by the county commission. It's a fund structure that says, I get to appoint someone and you get to say how it's funded and what fashion or funded at all. And so the purpose of me coming here today is to ask for the commission to create a 0.2 FTE and fund that position out of a current existing line item that is being used to fund the awards that are administered by the Property Crime Compensation Fund. And normally I wouldn't be asking you to take awards away or monies away from the awards, but the way in which the Property Crime Compensation Fund works is we can self-fund that fund through diversion fees. So currently we charge a $100 diversion fee on all traffic diversions. Those monies then can go into the local fund that's been established, the Property Crime Compensation Fund, and we can then award those $250 and $500 up to those awards for misdemeanors and felonies through that fund instead of a line item in our budget, which is what it's currently being funded as. There's a $20,000 line item that has been annually approved. I think as long as I went back in the budget, could find that there's a $20,000 line item for that payment of those awards. And instead of that, we're proposing that this full-time or this .2 position be funded out of that line item and the fund itself pay for the awards. And so part of the reason I'm also here is because I wanted to make sure that our office has a dedicated position that is solely focused on this fund and solely focused on making sure that people can navigate the process, apply, that we can make sure that the folks who are applying have cooperated with law enforcement, have met all the requirements that are put in place by law, and also because based upon the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a real neglect of this fund, neglect of this process, to the point where in 2024, we had 0 awards given, 0 monies expended in 2024, and we'd stopped outreach to local victims of crime. We'd stopped processing those applications. And so without a dedicated person, we had really stopped doing the work of this commission or this Property Crime Compensation Fund. Additionally, we had, when we came into office, and I came into office, we went back and looked through the fund, went back and looked through the processes. Our transition coordinator director found that they had not been following the statutes appropriately, found that there had been monies being used for non-fund expenses. So we then instituted an audit of the entire fund as well as our other funds that we have in our office. There's 3 separate bank accounts to make sure that we're in compliance with statute, we're in compliance with accounting principles and the ethical requirements for attorneys. So having a dedicated person who can make sure there's no fund mismanagement, make sure that they're doing outreach to folks who've been victims of crime in our community and are coordinating with law enforcement agencies who are the normal agencies who provide us the list of folks who've been victims of crime, all wrapping that up under one umbrella, one person, makes it far easier for us to make sure we're in compliance, we're being good stewards of tax dollars, or in this case, the funds we receive through diversion, and that people who have been victims of crime get assistance. It also means that we have a person who is accountable for that. And the person who our office can turn to and the commission can turn to, and most importantly, the 3-member board can turn to for questions they have about how funds are being distributed and making sure we are following through on that. Because again, under the previous administration, there was a lack of oversight, a lack of accountability from the top down. I would say that all persons who were involved with the Property Crime Compensation Fund previously are no longer with the district attorney's office, either through termination, or taken in new positions. But all those folks had been removed from any duties with the Property Crime Compensation Fund prior to leaving the office. So we have, at this point, a real need to have someone who oversees this on a daily basis, or at least as a full-time responsibility of theirs. And again, to go back to the statute, normally I would just assign this to someone, but given that the commission has a role in funding that position and the commission has a role in overseeing or creating the position and appointing the board members to that, I felt it was more appropriate to come before the commission and ask for this change opposed to making the change just internally through our budget process. So that is the reasons I'm here. I would let you know, annually we are taking in about $21,000 a year in these diversion fees. So we're taking in more monies in 2025 and 2024 than we had expended or that was being put into the line item by the county commission for our budget. So we have additional funds above and beyond what the commission had approved. I can also tell you that since 2010, when we started awarding these property crime compensation funds. We've never hit $20,000 in a single year. So what would happen is the $20,000 line item would be put in the budget. We'd use $8,000, $10,000, $15,000 worth of funds, and then whatever was not used would be then swept back in. This allows us to self-fund it through the fund and also roll over any funds that are collected in a year so that we can continue to accrue property crime compensation funds to pay for future awards. So just in the last 4 years, we have roughly had about $59,000 go into that fund. There's also additional monies that are in that fund from previous years. But given that all the awards have been coming out of our line item in the budget, we have not touched that fund. So there's a sizable reserve as well. So I have very few concerns. I really have no concerns about us being solvent and being able to pay these awards over the years if we were to change from a line item process to a self-funding process, which is why I'm also asking that the county commission then take that line item and turn it from a fund line item into a 0.2 FTE to pay for the salary of the person who would be working on this part-time. So that is the basis of my request today. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has regarding this proposal and what our office has done to stand this fund back up, given the state it was in when we came to office in January of 25.
Thank you, Dakota. Appreciate the overview and the transparency about what you all have figured out about how it came to be and how it's been functioning and how to tidy it up and make it more efficient, it sounds like. So commissioners, any questions specifically about what was just shared?
I have a few. And I'm assuming, I think maybe you said this, that the coordinator cannot be funded out of the property crimes compensation fund, like that is disallowed within that fund. Is that correct?
There's nothing, the property crime compensation fund is for the payment of awards. And the statute specifically states that, and I can read it's that the cost of such employee shall be paid by the county in a manner decided by the county commission. So if the county commission decided to pay the property crime compensation coordinator out of the local fund, I think that would run, that would be not in compliance with what the fund's purpose is, which is to pay awards, and that's solely for awards for property crime victims.
So you're saying correct, that it can't be paid for out of that, and we don't control that fund, so that wouldn't fall under the statute.
Correct. It's a local fund, but the fund is solely for property crime compensation.
So let me ask you this, the property crime compensation coordinator position, the 0.2 FTE for 15,000, like that's a position to coordinate that's going to cost 15,000, but the currently it's less than 10,000 that's been allocated over the last several years. Is that because the process hasn't been working and it should be a greater capacity? What is the capacity? What amount of what should people be getting compensated for? Are we just having people fall through the cracks?
So I think there's a number of reasons why there's been diminishing applications made and diminishing awards given. Primarily, there was a lack of processing of applications and emphasis on that in the prior administration. We also need to coordinate with law enforcement agencies. They need to provide to us on a weekly basis victims of property crimes who we can then reach out to. So we have restarted that conversation. Certain agencies do already provide that to us. And so we can then reach out to those people to get them to apply. It's also a matter of just emphasis with our victim witness specialists who are now, we've revamped the entire application process. It was I think an 8-page application and required repeatedly sending out, you have to apply, and then after getting awarded, you have to say how you'd like to get the award in a notarized fashion. It was making it far too complicated. Our transition director turned that into a single-page application. So it's now on it's two-sided. One page has the application, the other side has information about the process and information about the fund. There's a QR code, so you can go from that directly to our website and apply online. So we've, I think, trying to decrease barriers, but there were barriers to how to apply. There was an emphasis on it. And I think for if you look back at 2010, 2011, when the fund started, they were taking in 60, 70 applicants a year. They were expending $17,000, $18,000 a year. As time went on, it became less of an emphasis given, I just think, some attrition and knowledge about the fund and how it's run, especially after the change in administrations in 2021.
You're saying that it's been functioning under capacity because of the barriers to the application process and just the outreach that hasn't been happening. So you're saying that prior to the numbers that have been provided to us, which would go back to 2021, I think that was more in the $17,000 range, $20,000 range that was being allocated.
Yeah, it's never been over $20,000 in a year, but there were multiple years with above 15,000, some were 16, 17,000, when there was an emphasis placed on recruiting folks to apply. And there are a number of limitations that the statute puts in place. You have to report the loss within 72 hours. You have to file the application within 60 days. So there are some limitations that make it harder for folks to apply if they don't know about the process and don't know about the funds early on in the process. But I think a lot of this really comes down to an emphasis in the office. And if you have a dedicated person whose job is to reach out to individuals who are victims of property crime and get them through the system quickly, it really does two things. One, it gets more applicants in and we can then better address folks' needs. But two, it can do that immediately, which this fund is set up almost explicitly for immediate relief. We had a woman who had her vehicle broken into. They took out her steering column and so disrupted her ability to her ignition, and so she couldn't get to work. She was part-time. There's a whole host of issues there. Middle of winter, getting her $500 in a short period of time meant the difference between her being able to get to work or not, made the difference between her being able to have a vehicle that was operational. And as we all know, transportation in this community is very limited for some of these, depending where you live. So having her get those funds immediately would have been a huge benefit to her. And that it kind of goes to the purpose of this statute, which is to help folks out immediately if they've been a victim of crime and had a pecuniary loss.
And the statute establishes the $250 or $500 limit.
That's correct.
How old is that statute?
Far too old. I cannot tell you the exact date. I think it was created in the early 2000s or late 1990s. The board has the ability to waive that, so we can give awards in excess of the $250 or $500. Johnson County has recently had a discussion about almost making that a de facto waiver, given the amounts of, when I think this was passed, misdemeanors would have been $500 for certain crimes, and now they're up to $1,000 or $1,500, depending on what they are. So this statute has not kept up with inflation, certainly. But we do have the ability through the board to address that if they want to waive those caps.
And you had mentioned that the responsibility for this has kind of turned over in a variety of ways. And but the board itself, that appointed board, I think we have some institutional knowledge on that board. I think we've reappointed some folks who have served previously. So
that's
is
correct.
That the case?
Currently, it's a 3-member board. I think our last appointment was in June of 2025 or July of 2025. Steve Crane, he's served on the board for some time now. Our other 2 board members are also now been serving for, I think, 3 years roughly. So they have good institutional knowledge. And I will say, since the board's been stood back up, that they weren't meeting in 2024. They often had issues getting quorum and just saying meetings. By statute, we're supposed to be meeting every month. We're now in compliance with that. Having a dedicated person who works with them also helps answer any of their questions as they're engaged in this process. They've been, I have to say, even before I entered office, Steve especially has been very helpful in terms of understanding the process, understanding what they do, and really trying to get this back together. Because he, I think, understands the importance of this for people who have had a loss in the community and don't necessarily have the funds to cover whatever may have occurred to them, and with through no fault of their own.
Thanks for answering questions.
Thank you.
I might just add in also, I think, to draw on some of the points I think I've heard you make, Dakota, is that Well, you drew out the fact that there are some kind of strict timelines in the statute. So having reported a crime within 72 hours in order to be eligible, only having 60 days to be able to access this fund. Those are two automatic limitations. And while the statute is very much about the district attorney's office and then the county commission's role in that, it also relies upon, well, let me first say, it's not specific to cases charged by the district attorney's office. Is that correct? Am I correct in reflecting that it can be a report to police that ends up not being charged by your office? It may have been reviewed by your office, but not charged. That victim is still eligible to apply for compensation because they were a victim of crime.
That's correct. So there's not a requirement that our office take any action. There could be it doesn't even get sent to our office for determination of whether or not a crime has, we have probable cause to go forward with a case. So you'll often see victims of property crime who there will never be identified suspect. It'll never be submitted to our office, but those folks are still eligible for compensation. And that's one of the reasons it's really important for our office to be able to coordinate with law enforcement agencies who receive those reports. So, for example, we had a string of tire punctures on KU campus. It's really important that if we have 10 or 12 vehicles who all had a tire punctured, those are kind of the perfect example of the types of cases we want to help out. But none of those were ever forwarded to us because there wasn't an identified suspect. Now, KU, we talked with KU about that. We could find the folks, and that's what a dedicated person on this would be able to do, is reach out immediately after receiving those reports, even if there's not going to be a report or affidavit submitted to our office, reach out and make sure people know they have this ability to apply, get the materials together to apply, receipts, estimates, what have you, and then get those submitted to our office in that 60-day period.
Yeah, thanks, Dakota. I appreciate you drawing that out because I think it's important to me. What stands out, and it's, based on my familiarity with this process and the ebb and flow of it over the years, is that what stands out is that this sort of looking at it and tightening up your processes is an opportunity to really increase that collaboration with all the law enforcement agencies and do, like you just drew out an example of, some increased awareness and education for law enforcement officers and departments about how to be tracking and gathering and providing that data, or be responsive with that data, so that we can, that the district attorney's office can be more proactive in making sure that folks know it's a possibility, because there are very few professionals in the community who are aware that this fund exists. And only if somebody is a victim of crime that also happens to be receiving services at one of those agencies would they know, especially if it's not a case or a crime that gets charged by your office and there's nobody reaching out to them as a victim of crime. And so I think it's an important element of this, looking back at this process and working to try and shore it up with a coordinator, is that opportunity for increased coordination and collaboration with law enforcement. That's what really can make it more systemically impactful, and not just a statute that we're sort of plugging and playing dollars with paper all the time and not thinking too much more deeply about. Commissioner Kelly, you got
I
questions?
just have a couple of questions, Dakota. So I think I understood you that prior to 2021, the awards were much higher annually. Is that correct?
Prior to 2021, the average annual award was much higher. And then starting in 21 through 24, when there was 0 awards in 24, they started to decrease. I think for 2025, we had, I'll take a look at this, we had, through basically half of the year, distributed roughly, $8,800.
Okay.
But that was based upon the board only restarted in July of 2025 after Steve Crane was reappointed. And so in 6 months, we basically did $8,800 worth of awards. So that would be, I think, that was without a lot of outreach. I mean, there's a reemphasis in our office to make sure anyone who came in knew they were eligible for that, was given information about that. But there's still folks that were missing, and clearly a dedicated staff member could do a better job of recruiting folks and letting them know about their potential ability to apply.
So prior to 2021, did the district attorney's office have a dedicated staff member to do this?
I do not know what the prior to 2021, what the Charles Branson's administration did in terms of staffing. The traditional way in which it has been staffed is that there's someone in the DA's office, normally a victim witness specialist, who is given that role. It says you are the victim, you are also the property crime compensation coordinator. That was what occurred underneath DA Valdez. My assumption is that underneath DA Branson, that was the same structure roughly, that there was a person there who was who was tasked with that. I will say part of the issue we've had is that we've had now both through people leaving prior to coming to office and then taking new positions for a good period of time. We only had two victim witness specialists. As of Monday, we are now fully staffed. We have 4 victim witness specialists as of Monday, one of whom started a week and 2 days ago. The other one started on Monday. But with our victim witness specialists, one of the things that our office also is focusing on, the emphasis on, is making sure that those folks are being more engaged in the more time-consuming, more court-intensive, high-profile victim cases, including homicides, sexual assault cases, domestic violence cases, and so we've discussed having someone who would be dedicated to property crimes to work with the property crime coordinator. That being said, given the needs that our office has right now, property crimes end up being the lowest priority on the totem pole for our victim witness specialists. So having a person who has solely dedicated to that as their only real function, and also can do the accounting, provide information to the district court as is required by statute, coordinate with law enforcement, so they would be working less with victims and doing more outreach. That's why we think this would be an important position to have to supplement what our victim witness specialists can do in court and with victims of person crime.
Thanks. So in the past, if awards are funded out of the general fund and it wasn't completely used, so let's say 15,000 of the 20,000 was used, 5,000 went back to the county. Am I right on that? Is that a question?
That's correct.
And in the way that you're proposing it, my hunch is that we couldn't send diversion fees back to the county. Is that correct? Because there are specific fees for specific things.
That's a really good question. It's part of what we're doing our audit on right now. And it's one of the things that I've been acutely sensitive to based upon some past practices. What I can say right now is that the diversion fee should be going to you can charge up to $100 for diversions, and those $100, if you have a property crime compensation fund, are earmarked for that property crime compensation fund, so for that local fund. Previously, there were additional funds that were collected, a diversion application fund. I do not know, I'll be honest, having looked through statute, most county and district attorneys collect those application funds. It appears as if I can't find a statute that speaks to these application funds, but prior to 2021, when application fees were being collected, in addition to the diversion fees, those were being resubmitted, at least for the last, I think we've gotten through 2014 or 15, those were being resubmitted to the county treasurer. So those were going into the county treasury. Those would be the diversion application fees.
If you're unable to hire somebody for a 0.2 job, what will you do?
We had discussed contracting this out, but based upon what the statute says, and I think the directives that are in statute about what the role of the property crime compensation fund coordinator is, and the role that the county commission plays in funding that position, I don't think that is something that we could do under current statute. If the commission was to not fund this 0.2 position, I think we would almost certainly be looking at having non-victim witness staff take these additional responsibilities on. So some of that work is some of this work is currently being done by our chief of staff. That is an expensive proposition given the hourly rate there. Some of the work is being done by me. Some of the work is being done by legal assistants or executive assistants. So it's kind of spread out too, which is the other, I think, concern I have about this is that there are multiple hands doing this work opposed to a single person who has their hands around all of it. But continue doing what we're doing now to try and make sure these services get provided and folks know about it. But it would be, I think, less efficient and potentially more costly.
Thanks.
Was it the idea, and I mean, I know you can't guarantee what candidates you would get or who would come for this position if approved and advertised as such, but was part of the line of thinking that it would be an additional 0.2 FTE that a staff member in your office that there would be basically an additional role in compensation for somebody who holds a different full-time position? Is that part of the thinking? Part of why I'm thinking about this is because my anecdotal historical knowledge is that going back, further, more like, 8 to 10 years ago, is that it was a singular person in the office's responsibility, but it was just a line in their larger job description to be basically the liaison for the property compensations board and to sort of stay on top of the meeting coordination and whatnot. I don't know that there was a whole lot of active outreach per se, but that there was a staff member who had a full-time role otherwise, usually victim witness coordinator, but I think a legal assistant at one time too, whose one of their job descriptions was this role. And so I just wondered if that was, does your office really envision that it'll be a truly part-time employee with very limited and focused role?
The way I envision this is that this would be someone wholly separate from the current employees. It wouldn't be a supplement to any current employees' hours. It wouldn't be a supplement to if we have an FTE that's a full-time employee.
Yeah, we
There'd be a
couldn't
whole
do,
lot of
we wouldn't be able to do it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, and I said that weird. I meant to say, like, if there were any part-time employees that you already have, that this would be an additional part-time FTE. That's what I meant to sort of spell out. And I didn't think that was likely, but just want to sort of flesh out the possibility.
I appreciate that. And I think, if we had someone who is a part-time employee right now and had the capacity for this and the skill set, that would be a conversation we'd be having already. But I think one of the things that we're acutely aware of too is that, as we increase, certain folks may not be eligible for benefits. We don't want to trigger that by doing anything like that. So find someone who has the time and background to do this work, but is also going to does not need benefits, does not need full-time employment. And really, this is much more of a couple mornings or afternoons a week and coordinating with, given the scope of this. So someone who has some flexibility in their hours, but can dedicate all their time and energies to this, and also be, engaged perhaps in the community in a broader way too, so that they can do more outreach and maybe they have a role in the community already where they can advocate for this on their own time as well.
Got it. Thank you. Commissioners, other questions?
Do you have a backlog of applications currently that you would need this coordinator to address?
So we do not have a backlog of current applications. We are getting through those in a month-to-month basis. So I think, for example, we had 4 applications last month. We do our meetings at the end of the month and then issue rewards at that point. So we don't have a backlog of them. One of the things that we don't know, and one of the things that would be helpful, have someone who can dedicate some time to dig into this, is that given that we could not find, there's a year without really any applications, or at least no applications that were acted upon, we have concerns that people in 2024 applied, submitted applications, and those just went into a black hole someplace before we took office. So having someone who could go back and see were there applications that were never processed. We have done a lot of digging on that. We have not found anything for that year of 2024 as of yet. We did have some people reapply, and that allowed us to find that they had applied. I think raised a concern that we'd missed things in 2024. But I also know that we are shortly going to be moving all of our first floor and basement offices, and moves end up uncovering things. And so it might be in 2 months I'm coming back to you and saying I have found all of these applications because they were in a folder that got placed in a desk in a drawer that no one's been using for the last 2 years. So here they are. But yeah, that would be, we don't have a backlog as of today.
Okay. And so prior with those applications, paper applications versus digital?
They were paper applications.
Okay. And then will this coordinator also work with the 3-member board moving forward?
So the part of their responsibilities under statute would be to coordinate and manage all the board meetings, to give them direction regarding applications in terms of if they are eligible, if they meet the criteria, if they had cooperated with law enforcement, and our office's position on the award. The award themselves are always up to the 3-member board, so they get to make the determination about whether or not to grant the award and in what amount. But the coordinator would work with them really on a continuous basis and provide them information about every application, while also coordinating all the meetings and all of the processes that they go through to vote and to review applications.
And when you say amount up to that 500 threshold, and so it would be a determination of the Board of County Commission for your team to come back to the Board of County Commission if we wanted to take a look at the amount above 500?
So the waivers, the 3-person board can waive the caps.
Oh,
So
they
it
can.
it would not need to come back to the county commission for that. What the county commission's role is, again, I think primarily the appointment of the 3 board members, and then the funding of the property crime compensation fund coordinator.
Okay.
And then there is some fund oversight, but that is solely through I think the county's natural processes, not through the county commission itself.
Okay, thank you. And who are the other 2 members of the board outside of Steve Crane?
So it is Rick Weeks and then Danny Affelter are the 2 other board members.
Wayne Ricks?
Are Wayne Ricks, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? Okay, thanks, Dakota. We appreciate all that information.
Thank you all.
This is a general business item, so we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody in the audience wish to provide public comment on this item? Seeing no takers, anybody raise their hand? All right. We'll bring it back for any closing comments, thoughts, any other questions that bubbled up in the last 30 seconds, or motions?
I really appreciate Dakota looking at another way of funding those awards, and I'm excited in that. I think since we've already approved as part of our 2026 budget, I don't really have a problem with the request. I think it's important to have a person. I am a little bit concerned about a 0.2 position, and would just encourage, as we go into the 2027 budget cycle, to think about how, we can have a line for it and we can pay for it, but that is a burden on the taxpayer. And I think there's been some communication among this board that we want to be thoughtful about that, and that we want to make sure that, today we were talking about $2,000. So, when we think about $20,000, should we weave that into a different way than just generally putting that there? If we're going to use awards out of the diversion fund, which makes sense to me, do we have to have it there in that line, and that's how it's paid for? So, I think I don't have a problem with it tonight as it's done here, but we'll be interested to see if we decide to approve it, how we might move forward on it.
similarly. It fits in the budget as written, but it's also feels a little bit awkward to add, FTEs outside of the budget process, however they might be structured, because, I'm always really cautious about that because of the ongoing commitment to it. It is curious, though, that within staff now, it's being managed and updating the form and not having a backlog, like it's kind of working within that frame. And I know that that's not the ideal, not what you came to pitch for, but it's $15,000 to cover the cost of a coordinator that helps give out less than $15,000. So just like the fence conversation, the cost to produce that program versus the program dollars that are going to the community. And I don't want to diminish at all that's of value, but I just want to kind of hear what other commissioners are thinking in terms of that balance.
I think I hear that. And for me, I mean, the past 5 years certainly of sort of numbers, and I would say even, a full decade worth of numbers is, it's a little bit of a hard picture to base it off of for a couple of reasons. One, we talked about the fact that there's these statutory limits to the amount that can be requested, which are far outdated. And I can share from anecdotal experience that sometimes when talking about that limitation, it doesn't feel worth it to the person who's the victim of crime to go forward with it. It's too much of a process. Even though it's a relatively simple process, it's still just too much of it, and it doesn't meet the need that they have. And so that's one barrier that is beyond our control, right? But maybe there's some increased opportunity for that 3-member board. And I think especially with a dedicated coordinator role that's focused on more outreach and the coordination of all the logistics, of course, but also maybe, strengthening that board's ability to think about strategies for making better use of the funds that are available. And so I think that there's something to be said for putting some dedicated staff time to this program that is statutorily required and that historically has been not something many people know about, even within the district attorney's office, that very few practitioners are aware of. I would argue that not necessarily a lot of law enforcement officers are acutely aware of it and offering it. So I think that it's a renewed and refreshed opportunity to focus on the fact that this fund and this opportunity to remove barriers and help compensate for the consequences of crime victimization is an opportunity to see if much more of that fund could be used. And the fact that it has built up a little bit over time, and the diversion fees can and should sustain it well and easily. It sounds like I'm interested in and personally eager and hopeful to see that use of that fund and the accessing of it, both in the frequency and number of applications, but also maybe in the increased award amounts being possible or more regular, because that matches what the need is and might align a little bit more with the dollar amounts of property crimes that are being charged, for example, and how that's been updated in statutes, but this hasn't. So I'm hopeful that we might see, if the position can be hired for and there's some real focus on that, all of those pieces of it, the outreach being a big piece of it, and education to the community, that we could see increased use of it and a better return on investment in that way. And that, a coordinator could also probably go a long way in helping empower that 3-member board that we're appointing to not just be the reviewer of applications and the decider of awards, but to be thinking about strategically advocating for the program itself and the use of it and the access to it and the viability of it long term. And I'd say, well, I hear the point that, the current staff have been sort of figuring it out and maybe limping it along to some point. But I think the past year in particular, that focus has been so much on just figuring out what's been happening with it, how it got to where it was, what was the previous thinking about where these dollars come from and who allocates them and who's responsible for yada, yada, that now that that seems shored up based on everything we just heard from the DA's office, that a coordinator can step into a role and then just really build out that foundation. And I mean, there's always some possibility in the future that the DA's office comes back to us and says that it's become such a streamlined process, and that 3-member board is sort of really highly functioning, that maybe there's not such a need for a paid position anymore. But I do see it as an important strategy right now to sort of refocus on how it's a pretty significant function of the DA's office. And support for and protection of rights for crime victims is sorely overlooked in the criminal justice system. So I appreciate that there's a renewed focus on it in this way. And I'm hopeful that we might see more than $20,000 worth of awards go out in a single year in the near future.
Agreed. I'm in favor of funding a property crimes coordinator. I think it has the opportunity to mitigate health-related social needs in the future. As Dakota mentioned, there's an opportunity of getting individuals back to work if they could actually access the dollars in a more efficient and quicker manner. And so as we look at opportunities to reduce costs in the future, either for the county or for individuals impacted, I see this as an opportunity for cost reduction.
Every day I read about 2 or 3 bicycles being stolen in town, and they're never prosecuted probably, and they're never found. So you got a bunch of kids running around without their bicycles. And if we could advertise this program a little better, I think you might get more applications in that regard. And I think based on issues in the past, it's not a bad idea to have a part-time employee dedicated to this.
All right, commissioners, I'm ready for a motion if anybody's queued up.
This might be a bad idea, but I just want to poke on a thread that I don't know enough about, and that is that the fund we're talking about, the Property Crimes Compensation Fund, is funded through not the county commission and not our mill levy, but through diversions, through a fee on diversions. And I know we, as Douglas County, tend to not charge a lot of fees for people within our criminal justice system. Is that something that needs to be talked about, the fee for diversions? This may not be the forum for that, but I'm just curious because we're moving from a mill levy fund that would now be managing this or funding that position rather than the compensation, and then the compensation fund funding the compensation. It's meant for that, but it's funded through diversions. Any thoughts on that, or should I?
We could bring you back more information. I just don't think we have that information tonight to make that, to go into that level of detail. But if you would like more information, sure.
What I'd say is that there's only traffic diversion fees that are being applied. So there's no felony diversion fee. There's no criminal misdemeanor diversion fee. So in essence, the cap at $100, what's almost certainly happening in all these cases is a limited number of types of cases that are eligible for those traffic diversions. It's a $100 traffic diversion fee to cover a diversion on a speeding ticket or on a failure to yield, something like that. So it's a limited use of that. We're acutely aware and concerned about, the criminals or the commodification of individuals who are caught in the criminal justice system and using them to fund the system. We want to avoid that at all costs. Here, I think we've found a balance where to fund the Property Crime Compensation Fund, people who are getting a pecuniary benefit to not have a ticket on their record are paying us that diversion fee. So again, if you have a diversion on a domestic battery, you have a diversion on a interference with law enforcement, those are not being charged. There's no diversion fee for those. And then the only other thing I'd say, I think, what we'd be talking about the positions, we did have a lot of this work was done by someone who's no longer in our office, our transition coordinator director. So a lot of the work to get this stood back up, the person who did all that work is no longer there. It's a temporary position. And so that's where this need now in 2026 has, I think, triggered the need for that position because the transition director is no longer in the office.
Thanks. I appreciate just getting a chance to close the loop on that. I might give that some more thought later, but it doesn't have to be interfering with tonight's meeting. So thank you.
Happy to make a motion if we're ready.
Yep.
I move to approve to create a .2 FTE position to serve as the property crime compensation coordinator and fund the salary of said position by allocating 15,000 from the line item 1001510099095.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say nay.
I'll go with a less enthusiastic aye. How about that?
Okay.
Count me in as an aye.
All right. Passes unanimously. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Dakota. And with that, we will move on to item 4.3 on our regular agenda. And I will let Sarah introduce our guests.
Commissioners, thank you. We have some friends from Visiting Nurses here. They've had some changes in leadership, so we thought this would be an opportunity before the budget process kicks in, just to have a little update on what's going on at VNA and let this team introduce themselves. So if you want to come forward to the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I'm excited. I think they each have their own part of a script is what I'm imagining.
Good evening. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share some great successes we've had at the VNA and some initiatives that we're working towards. And I want to thank you all for your support in the past years and currently for your support of the Visiting Nurses Association. I'm Melinda Ward, the CEO, and I am here with a team of people, and I just wanted to recognize those out in the audience. We have Tasha and Carrie from our finance team and 2 board members, Steve and Ernesto. And then here behind me, I have some of my leadership team. I have David Thomas, the chairperson of our board of directors, myself, of course, and Michelle Watson, our chief strategy officer, and Pamela Morgan, our chief financial officer. So I think at this time, I will let David start.
Good evening, and thank you for letting us be here tonight. My name is David Thomas. I'm a nurse practitioner with the hospitalist service at LMH. I've been in the community since 1999 with my family, and I want to thank you first for your leadership. I know it's very challenging, and I appreciate you guys, what you do. I've been not only with the hospitalist program at Lawrence Memorial Hospital since 2008, but I've also been with the board of the VNA for the past 5 years and the chair for the past year. As my wife would attest, I don't get out of the hospital or the healthcare sector very much, so I'm really honored to be here tonight in front of you. Also, as a taxpayer, what I just heard you guys go through and discuss and what we're discussing here, I really appreciate how diligent you are about our tax dollars. I believe by the end of our presentation, there will not be a question of continued support for Douglas County VNA. The reason for my presence tonight, along with 2 other board members, is to show our 100% support of Douglas County VNA and the positive direction of VNA in providing excellent home care for our community members. Last fall was a historic transition point for Douglas County VNA, with Melinda Ward becoming the CEO. Many financial and regulatory concerns were immediately addressed. Many changes were needed, including rebuild completely the hospice program. Medical delivery services have been in a tough environment for several years. Hard changes had to be made to keep up. I'm proud to say that we have the right CEO at the right time to lead us through this pivotal time. We have a talented, hardworking team members with the same passion to provide excellent home care to residents of Douglas County and surrounding area. I'm excited for the positive direction of Douglas County VNA and honored to introduce you to Ms. Melinda Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I wanted to include this slide to show the heart of our work and our patients and our community, citizens of our community, and some pictures of some of our newest team members. And in the top right, you can see our Start of Care nurse that's performing care there. And we have some new branding, some nice new bright colored scrubs. And then in our bottom left, we have our hospice team, and that is our new medical director for our hospice program, Dr. Wiles. And he comes to us with a lot of experience. And we have beside him Amanda Carpajal, our new hospice director, and several new team members. And then up at the top corner, we have our home health team, which comprised of nurses and therapists, and an engagement training that we just had this past month. And I just wanted to show these pictures to assure you that our team is engaged and serving with their hospice and home health hearts. And we're really excited to serve and grow the VNA to do more and be the very best. The next slide shows our new organizational chart. The red boxes indicate some changes that we made with senior leadership. And so you'll see that we have Pamela Morgan, who's our Chief Financial Officer. And then we have a newer position at the VNA, a Chief Strategy role. We're really excited to have Michelle support innovation and technology solutions. She is helping us shape the vision for the long-term future of the VNA and the direction we're moving in. And her first initial project that's been ongoing is service excellence in all that we do. Michelle supports the strategic plan of the VNA and is supporting our transformative culture. So we're really excited for this new role at the VNA. In the blue boxes, you'll see particularly on one side is our home health agency. It has a lot more support. It's our largest program. But we've built out a clinical manager and also a staff development manager that focuses on clinical competencies and education. And just over a little bit farther on the org chart, you see Amanda Carpajal, our hospice director, with her team. So we're excited for the realignment of our organization and strengthening where we have opportunities for clinical oversight and education. First, I wanted to talk about our home health program out of our 3 programs. One area that we have been focusing on is serving more patients and families in our Douglas County area, increasing admissions and our census for the Honor to Care for More. And through that, we are focusing on education, specifically on clinical competencies, wound care, chronic heart failure, COPD, and also IV therapies. We're doing a lot of education and training, again, to be experts in those areas and doing the very best for our community. Another area of focus is layering in some extra RN support so that we can serve with urgency. So when there's a need in our community, that we have the staffing model and we can get out there and take care of our clients and our patients very quickly to meet their needs. We're also excited to roll out this summer in July a new vestibular program for our therapy group, and that will help us with managing falls, and it'll be part of our fall prevention program. But vestibular therapy focuses on different techniques that the therapist will learn how to do to help move ear crystals back into the ear canal where they should be to prevent falls and keep them safe at home. Our hospice program has undergone probably the most changes. We had new leadership due to retirements. And we have a medical director, as we mentioned in the earlier slide, Dr. Mark Wiles. And so he has a lot of expertise with wound care. He's a wound care physician, behavioral health specialist, and he is a correctional medicine physician, as well as a board certified hospice and palliative care physician. So he's been a tremendous asset to our program, and he started January 1st. We also have 2 community liaisons, specialized experts in hospice that help the transitions of care, goals to care conversations with family at the critical time. Additionally, we have a grief support program that is formalized, structured 13 weeks with actually videos and workbooks, and it's been very successful, and we're offering that to the community, where we have good attendance with community members. Volunteer, we have a robust volunteer program. We have just rolled out a volunteer vigil program, and really excited to have volunteers be supporting with vigil with hospice patients. Another exciting opportunity for us and change is we now have a pharmacy benefit manager program. And what that does is supports us with managing costs and then the best medications to treat patients with symptom management. And we have a formula we work off of. And so there's lower cost alternatives, better options for managing pain and symptom control. This is our private duty program, Help at Home. We've done some work here, and we have a focus now to go a little bit deeper. We are made some changes where we have RN oversight over the program now, and we're restructuring our payment model and also our service model. And currently working to update our clients' specific care plans and service plans. This next slide shows Douglas County, and you can see the heart there is where we're located. Typically, or I should say traditionally, we have only gone just a short way away from our office location. We really are extending our reach, and we put some references on there so you can see the miles each way. But we're really proud to be able to go out to the rural areas and serve those in most need, the most fragile. So an example is that, we had just this past weekend a patient that was in the general inpatient at Lawrence Memorial Hospital that wanted to go home in the worst way, and they were on hospice services, and we were able to have that happen within 3 hours. We were able to get that patient transported home where they were comfortable, had the needed medications and support at home with our nursing team, and we're able to, he was able to live another 3 days at home before he passed. And so we're really excited to work closer with LMH and help support safe transitions home where people can pass where they desire to pass. In most cases, that's the home setting. We're also really excited to be working out in Eudora with medical lodges and some other resources there to support respite for hospice. So we have some new partnerships and relationships as we expand out in the counties. Again, we serve with urgency, and we are building the team where we can meet the needs of our community. Now I'd like to introduce you to Michelle.
Hello, commissioners. You guys have been waiting for one of us to trade places up here, so we finally did that. I wanted to talk to you today about building partnerships. We're very intentional about rebuilding our community presence and strengthening key partnerships here in Douglas County. We realize that we haven't always shown up as strongly as we could, but that's changing. Over the past several months, I've been involved in groups like Project Lively, the Coalition for Human Services, been working closely with our partners at the Senior Resource Center, some HUD service coordinators, and the Jayhawk Area Agency on Aging. We're also increasing our presence in senior housing communities and strengthening connections with public health. I see Jonathan has already left. With public health and also emergency services. Our goal is we want to connect earlier with people so that the individuals who need the care will be there for them. Our conversations are helping us better understand where the real needs are and where people are falling through the cracks. We're moving from being a provider in the community to being a true partner in the community. And that's how we build a more connected system of care for the residents of Douglas County. But building and sustaining that kind of system doesn't happen without resources. So I'm going to turn it over to Pam to walk you through what it looks like from a financial perspective and why support like yours is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So this is the fun part where I get to talk about money. The first thing I want to say is the VNA does not turn down any patient based on their ability to pay. And that is a large part because of what you all do for us. And I can't thank you enough for that. This particular slide, though, shows what our 2025 operations look like. The past 5 years have been tough times in home health. We've often written about it in our proposals. The Medicare payment since the inception of the new payment model in 2020, the payment rate has just not kept up with the rate of inflation, the rate it costs to pay clinicians for our overhead. And as you can see, if you look at these numbers and you were to add them up, we lost about $630,000 operationally in 2025. Now, I know you look at that and you see those two big spikes. And we were very, very lucky to receive a large bequest that we've gotten in two different payments that was around $600,000, which really helped us last year not lose what would have been more like $1.2 million. We're working hard to turn that around, and a lot of the things Melinda has talked about and that Michelle has talked about are the things that we're doing to turn it around. I'd be amiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our investment accounts. We did withdraw $700,000 from the investment accounts just to cover operations. If not for those bequests, it would have been more like $1.3 million to cover operations. We do have two accounts. One's with DCCF and it's restricted. We really can't pull from it unless there's some extreme hardship, like we're closing the doors. But the other account is really what has helped keep us afloat. I think we're ready for your next slide.
Squeeze back in here. I wanted to share some of our performance metrics from 2026, January and February. And the top line talks about home health, and the second pink line is hospice. And we can start with home health for January. So we have some goals this budget year, and our census goal for home health for January was 170, and we met it at, well, a little bit under, variance of -3 at 167. We had 110 admissions to a census to admission goal of 94. Again, we accept all, and we take our responsibility seriously in providing care to our community. Our hospice, as I mentioned, has been kind of a rebuild of our entire program. Our census goal was 22 for January, and we achieved 25, positive variance of 3. We had 16 admissions to admission goal of 10. For February, our home health census was 203, and it's been as high as 214, I should say. Census goal of 175, variance of positive 28. Our admissions were 103 for February, and our admission goals were 96. Our hospice for February census was 24. Our census goal was 25. We missed that by 1. We did 17 admissions to a goal of 10. And I'm proud to say today, I believe our census is at 31, and we are projected to have 22 admissions this month of April. Pam, I'll give it back to you.
I wanted Melinda to do that slide right after I talked about how poorly we did last year, because I wanted you to see that we've got very distinct goals now and a plan to fix this operationally. But what I would like to talk about is what we do with our charity dollars. So this first slide is home health, and we spent $241,310 on charity for home health in 2025. That served 292 patients and included 1,209 encounters. There's three things that we spend charity care dollars on. One is direct patient care. Some are admitted at no charge. Others, we just don't pass balances on to them that they wouldn't be able to pay. We are one of the only agencies that never turns down a Medicaid patient. And this is what we call the underinsured patients. And the rates for Medicaid are much below even what we pay our clinicians to go out. We get approximately $24, $25 a visit for a Medicare patient, and it costs way more than that to send a clinician out. So these dollars make it so that we can take those Medicaid patients. The third thing that we spend it on in home health is basically charitable time in the community. So the time that someone from our agency goes out and does a blood pressure clinic for free, or exercise classes, or a nurse or a therapist just goes out to consult with the patient that we're not admitting, just to see, what their needs might be. We can go out and talk to anybody without a doctor's orders. We just can't admit them. So that's primarily where our home health dollars are going. Then for private duty, I've already talked to you about what direct patient care is. That's just somebody that we gave services to. And then the Medicaid program for our private duty, which we call Help at Home, is based on the home and community-based Medicaid waiver. And those patients also, we get, just a fraction of what it costs us to see those patients. And in previous years, we had 2 HCBS patients, and we weren't taking any more. But under Melinda, we've opened those doors, and we'll be taking any HCBS patients. So, and then in hospice, pretty much all the money goes in one way to direct patient care. Some are admitted as charity, but a lot of it is being able to take the community hospitals GIP patients, because 100% of the payment that we get for seeing those patients goes straight back to LMH. So we see those patients for 100% free. It is absolutely 100% charitable work. Anytime a spiritual or bereavement counselor goes out, we don't get paid anything for it, but we send them out anyway. So all the hospice dollars that we spend for charity care are direct patient care. In addition, we spend more than what you fund us on charity care. So because our goal is to see any patient, as I said, regardless of their ability to pay. I think that's, you're up.
Very good. Thank you. I hope you can feel our passion for our mission and how important it is to us to serve all. We're really excited for the future of the VNA. And again, thank you so much for your support. We're very thankful for our patients who choose us. It's an honor and a privilege. We're thankful to our staff that continue to show up really well at work every day with their hearts and serving so well. And of course, for our board members who are leading us and believing in us. and our volunteers for serving administratively in our office and out in our community and sitting vigil. And we're very thankful to our community for your continued support. And of course, for our beautiful office space that we have and the many privileges that we have with our partnerships and our community and our neighbors in our building. And so we're very grateful. And thank you for the opportunity to share this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for all that information. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure this commission has some questions for you. So I see Commissioner Dorsey unmuted first. Go for it.
Yeah, on one slide, you showed an admission goal and then a census goal. What's the difference between the two?
Admissions are the number of patients we're admitting into the agency, and then the census tells us how many patients we're taking care of at any given time. So we have patients that come in the agency for care and then they discharge. And so it just tells us how many patients collectively we're taking care of as the census. And then what drives the census is the number of admissions. And everybody has a different length of stay. Yes, great question.
Make sure you talk on the microphone if you have something to say. Thanks.
It's kind of like the admissions or the profit and loss statement, and the census is the balance sheet.
Other questions, commissioners?
I think my question is for Michelle. You mentioned working with some, additional partners and kind of really leaning into the community part of that, which I very much appreciate and like to hear. You also mentioned working with emergency medical services. Can you talk more about what that interaction is?
We are actively trying to strengthen our relationship with Mobile Integrated Health, and just working with them, getting to know who they are, what services they provide, where they are seeing some gaps, and how we can assist them. So it's ongoing. Hopefully I'll have a lot more to share with you next time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know I'm interested in your help at home program. I am excited because I know the demand is very high for that. And I understand that it doesn't pay very well. It's a big loss number there. Trinity In-Home does that, and that's listed as one of your partners. Can you talk about how you're making sure you're not grabbing Trinity's staff and they're not grabbing your staff? How's that working?
Yeah, as far as staff or patients or both, everything.
Just give it.
Just how are we doing it?
I'm open up.
Yeah, definitely. We're working together with Trinity, and just if there's any kind of patient where they're not able to serve them, they're reaching out to see if we're able to serve them. And just connecting with Janine out there and working on that relationship so that we aren't stepping on each other's toes. There are a lot of providers in the community, and we can all work together to meet the needs of the residents.
I might add, there's opportunity for us to support the Fragile in her program where we can do some hospice, some higher level care, and also some home health for aging in place. But often, we could have some staffing challenges and she as well. So we could share a client where she does the night shift and we do the day. But the goal is to get the services to the client where they feel safe and they stay at home and have the resources and support they need. So we work together to achieve that goal.
You mentioned kind of working further afield from Lawrence. And of course, we're Douglas County and we care about edge to edge, north to south, east, west. And so I really much value that you're kind of focusing and talking about that rural care also, because there is a lot of vulnerability there and fewer resources. It's also presumably comes with a higher cost because of the driving miles for, per call and such. How do you balance that? And are you able to serve all the way to the corners of Douglas County?
Yes, we are able to serve to the corners of Douglas County, and we're very proud to do that. So what we do is we balance that carefully, and we look at pockets of where we're, selling with our liaisons, as I mentioned, and we organize their day and their schedules that we can do that efficiently. But sometimes we don't always, we have to travel out, but that's okay because that's part of our mission in serving. And so really our culture is engaging that and listening, caring, and serving. And meeting the needs of all in our community. And so the rural patient that's fragile, that doesn't have resources like maybe here in town, are just as important, if not more important, that we need to be there for them. Thanks.
For your partnership with LMH, included the GIP patients at LMH, the entire payment is passed on to LMH. Is there an opportunity to collaborate with LMH and maybe develop some sort of an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and or a funding agreement?
It is part of the conditions of payment that a GIP patient, the money passes through. So we have to do that. Now, we could reach out to LMH and say see if they would do some sort of profit sharing with us. We have attempted to do that, and they have not responded. Would you like to add anything to that?
There's several GIP partnerships at LMH, about 5 different hospices, and we're one of them. And the arrangement is the same for all hospices. And so, again, it's just part of our mission, and it's important to us to be able to serve and meet the needs of patients in our community. So that's what we do, the heart of our work.
Sorry, go ahead.
We hope to continue to explore an opportunity for profit sharing, though.
Yes.
Sounds like a great plan.
You shared how county funds are being used for charitable care. Can you give us a sense of how you're able to leverage county funds or Medicare funds in private donations? How is that going? Because the way you're describing this, to me, it sounds like that there's no way they're going to be able to keep going, right? I mean, Medicare doesn't pay enough, Medicaid doesn't pay enough. You're hoping the county continues to fund you. How do you continue to provide that service?
That's a great question. So operationally, we do have some opportunities to improve processes and to deliver care differently so that we can at least break even in some of our programs, and hospice particularly should have a profit margin. And so, I'm newer in this role, started in August, but we have a lot of initiatives underway. We've seen a lot of progress. A lot of our key metrics are moving in the right direction. So we feel, a year from now, we'll be unrecognizable with our key metrics. We also have our annual appeal currently going, and we have a lot of donations coming in and support. So we're very grateful for that. But through our process changes, our initiatives, we should be in a much better position and be more stable financially.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Anderson might have a question, actually.
Well, and maybe more of a comment that there could be an opportunity to advocate with KDADS for HCBS waivers for improved funding, reimbursement rates. So maybe that's something to look at.
Yes, that is something we do as well. We have several staff members who sit on a standing committee with Medicaid and get all the cutting edge information, and we advocate for that as often as we can.
Okay, all right.
I was just going to say, I sit on the K8CHA, which is the Kansas Home Care and Hospice Alliance legislative committee. And so we are actively trying to negotiate rates anytime we can for Medicare or Medicaid. I guess it would be Medicaid at state, but yes.
All right.
I'd like to mention that we're very involved in our state associations and national, and we have several that are sitting on different committees. We're very active, and so we get cutting edge information like what was shared, and we have a privilege to get that information firsthand and be part of that, advocating for our industry.
Thank you.
Melinda, Michelle, and Pamela, thank you very much. We really appreciate the thorough presentation, and David and other board members and staff too. Appreciate knowing where you've been, where you're at, and where you're going, and we look forward to more updates from you. Thank you all. This is a regular agenda item, so we will open it up for public comment. Is there anybody here in the building that wishes to provide public comment on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none. Any raised hands, Sarah? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for any closing comments if you have any. And just a reminder for everybody, this is a non-action item and for informational purposes only. Any closing comments, commissioners?
Just a final one that all of my interactions through family and neighbors with VNA, the work provided has been excellent and so vital to just families managing really difficult scenarios. So I want to thank you for leaning in and being in our community and caring about our community for that really hard work, and it's appreciated.
You know, it's not many times that we get to hear something that just makes my heart jump, and in a county commission meeting, but when you hear them say, look, this is our goal, we're going to work together and see how we can figure it out together. I think that's what we ask so often for as a commission, is for our community partners to work together to help our community. And it's not about silos, and we'll figure out how to pay for it. And we know our community really supports these things. So thanks for that moment. As someone who has had to navigate some of the services that you're providing recently in another community, I would have been thrilled to be working with all the partners that you listed on here rather than where I was, because we're very fortunate in our community to have support not only from our taxpayers and our community members, but those who also give and support and give their work every day. So very grateful for that.
I just want to say it's actually fairly rare that we get a heartfelt thank you for the work and the support and the finances that we offer through our budget process. We get a lot of requests. We get fewer thank yous, so I appreciate that too.
And I also just think it's really important that individuals have the opportunity to go home when they can. And so just appreciate that you're working through those workflows and opportunities to get them home when they have the opportunity to go home and spend their final days either in their own bed or with their own family members outside of a clinical setting, if that is their so choosing. So just really appreciate that.
And one last kudos I'll pile on is just from a process point of view, we really appreciate as a commission having open and transparent dialogue with community partners, and you all coming and telling us what the struggles have been, what they are, and what you're working through to try and resolve that and make sure that this is an organization and service that stays viable in our community, because it has such significant importance and has been pointed out many times this evening and other meetings. You know, we have a significantly aging population, and so strengthening and increasing all of the services and supports around that is really important. And to Commissioner Kelly's point, the truly collaborative nature of that and figuring out when and where and how each of the players can plug in and put their skills and their resources on the table that complement other skills and resources is definitely something we appreciate here. So thank you for the spirit of transparency also, and for diligently working to figure out how to keep doing better and stay viable. So we appreciate your time. Okay, with that, commissioners, I'm gonna check in. We've been going over for a little over 2 hours. Would a majority of the commission like a brief break? Or are we ready to keep going? Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and I'm gonna go off of my computer clock because we have some differences in here, and we'll be recessed until 7:43. I don't know, 5 minutes is so hard.
Maybe. Chad, can you hear us? We've got you in the panel.
Yeah, I can hear
Okay,
you.
there you go.
All right, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I've got an agenda item here for a vegetation management plan. It's a 2026 draft update. And this is new to a couple of you. We started this 4 years ago. This plan is unique to Douglas County. We initially started in 2022 developing a response to some citizens' questions about how we manage herbicide and where we mow. And this plan has really been helpful in just putting on paper what we do and all the details of how we use chemicals and what our policies are. And 2 years ago, we went through another update plan. As it's written, we decided that a 2-year cycle was good to put this out there for the public to review and for the commission to approve. And so this is a draft we've updated this year, requesting approval again. And the idea is that if you all agree, we could put this on for next week, and that would give the public time to digest the information and then come back next week and take public comment and approve if appropriate. As far as updates to the plan, there really isn't anything substantive. All the policies are the same. We gave some new information on factual details about staffing and equipment and chemical use. And just a little background there, every single year we quantify how many gallons and other things that we use of herbicide and report that to you either in this report or when we come with a related item to buy herbicide. So in this agenda item, you'll see the summary of our herbicide use. And one of the goals of this initially was to reduce herbicide use, and we have done that. So the plan is pretty effective. I think it's useful for our crews. It's useful if the public has questions. And so again, if you agree, we could put this on the agenda, and then tomorrow morning I would send out a note to folks that it'll be on next week. We've got certain stakeholder groups who showed interest in this, and I can send that invite to them to review. And if they want to, come and make public comment, they can. And so I think that's a summary of what I've got for you.
Great. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate the overview. Commissioners, you have questions?
I've got a question, Chad. So I noticed that there used to be aquatic herbicides used for the water milfoil in Lone Star Lake, and then that ceased a few years ago. And I know there's been a lot of community conversations, on all sides of that. But the previous, when there was an aquatic herbicide used, it was based on a recommendation from the state. Do we still get recommendations from the state and then say, no, we're going to follow this vegetation plan instead and not use those herbicides? Or how does that work?
Right. We've got assistance from the state aquatic fisheries program for Lone Star Lake, and they've in the past made recommendations to treat the invasive weeds. They've actually had some turnover in their staff in the years since that first started. And, when I shared this plan that, we really want to have a public process for reviewing herbicide use, there really wasn't a mandate to use herbicides. And so I think they're really looking for us to take the lead on that. And we do have Eurasian water milfoil in the lake. We do have, measurements each year that we make. And there are some areas that are shallow arms that are sediment, arms that have a lot of milfoil in there because it likes shallow water and a lot of sunlight. And so there's really, it's hanging out there as a question. Is there a strong sense from the public that they want to get rid of that in the lake? Or, is there a stronger sense that they don't want to see herbicide in the lake? And I don't have that answer, which is another reason this plan is helpful. If you go to the section on this topic, it says that we won't take any action without bringing it to you and hearing from the public on that issue. There are some other ideas about how to control the invasive weed with lowering the water depth in the winter. And we tried that a little bit, and I think we got a little bit of a result, but it's not very scientific, and I can't report anything, in detail about the results or what that was. If we did that on a bigger scale, we would have to work with the cabin owners to get the docks removed for the winter. So there's some ideas there, but yeah, the herbicide has not been in use since 2020. there are some other plants that I think are benefiting from that. And so if you do, ever receive public comment, I think you'll hear both sides of that argument.
And the state doesn't mandate one way or the other.
Not at all.
Okay, appreciate those questions and answers. Thank you.
And Chad, have we taken a look at any other states' best practices in regards to milfoil, either mitigation at the site of boats, ramping, getting in and out of the water, and or have we looked at what other states are currently doing for machine removal and or herbicide?
Yes, we've done extensive research on the issue. We actually, for a while, had a machine that was attempting to mow, and those were in the early days of everybody trying to understand this issue, and it actually made it worse. And so we're not looking for mechanical solutions at this point. When I say it makes it worse, if you chop the plant, this is a plant that can float and reroot. So by making more pieces, you're making more plants. And so that was not effective. Chemical use has been shown to be effective, but obviously there are concerns overall with that. Other states, there are not a lot of references with success stories, and this is an issue nationwide. If you start searching for this, you find a lot of hits, in the lakes states like Wisconsin and Minnesota, and they're dealing with it too. So it would be great if somebody could find a silver bullet for this, but it's a difficult one.
Thank you.
Chad, my question is just about the process and cadence a little bit. I appreciate the review of how we got to making this report, and I really appreciate knowing from you and your staff that it's been helpful. It's been a helpful tool to develop and reference and look back at on a regular basis. So that's really positive to hear. Can you remind me if in 2024, when we did the update, did we do the same cadence where we had an agenda item like this and then put it on just 1 week later? And that once we got past this first review, like we're doing this evening, that's what triggered you to send it out to stakeholder groups. Do we do that same cadence? I'm just thinking out loud about how week feels a little short for that, considering it's kind of dense, even though I recognize the changes are not substantive. The stakeholder groups are probably the same that are relatively familiar. Yeah, just curious if that's what we did last time.
Sure. Yeah. Last time we actually handled this in one meeting. It was only 2 years old and we didn't have any changes. And there was a lot of work that went into the first round in 2022 with multiple meetings and public feedback. So just 2 years later, it didn't feel like we needed much. So we did put the word out before that one meeting just to let folks know. And that was the extent of it. This year being another 2 years later and having a couple of new commissioners, I thought it made sense to give it a little time. If 1 week is not enough, we can certainly choose another interval. That'd be fine too.
I appreciate the reminder. I don't have a strong opinion about it, and given that the changes are not that substantive, and I assuming that those stakeholder groups are already quite familiar that it's a week is probably fine, but I appreciate the reminder about how we did it before and what you were thinking. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. All right. With that, we will open this item up for public comment. We lost most of our public audience, all of our public audience, but is there anybody online who wishes to make public comment, Sarah? Okay. We'll close that and bring it back for any further comments. Any other questions that bubbled up or a motion?
First, I like the idea of having a week of, get some public feedback. We didn't hear a lot 2 years ago, though I think prior to that, there was a great deal of input. And these issues do come to me within my district to talk through on a variety of opinions with it, especially around the lake. But I really just appreciate the thoroughness of the document. I like reading it. I learned things out of it. And the addition of the, like, how many acres were actually used from each chemical was really fascinating to kind of see how that's being used and where. Maybe not universally fascinating, but I thought it was. So I just really appreciate the work that goes into this, and I'm curious to see what we hear within the community. I think if we do hear from folks, I think we'll hear a variety of opinions on it. And so that will be a good and robust conversation too. But I think this is a really thoughtful document. So appreciate it, Chad.
All right, well, we have a recommended motion that I'll go ahead and move forward with to direct staff to place the 2026 Vegetation Management Plan on the 4/15/2026 agenda for review, public input, and board approval if appropriate.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Great. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Chad. We'll see you next time. And with that, we'll move on to item 4.5. We'll invite.
First, I've got Michelle Spreer coming up here to introduce this item. We also have some Adam Brackman from Willis Towers Watson that I'm moving into the panel in case you've got questions for him, and Brooke Sauer, our finance manager. Turn it over to you, Michelle.
So I don't know if you saved the best for last or the worst for last, but here we are. I don't have a presentation. I think most of the information is in the AIR and the attachments. Like Sarah said. Okay, sorry, I'm too tall with these heels. There, is that better? Thank you. And we do have Adam Brackman from Willis Towers Watson online. He helps with the financial part as far as our projections, market trends, things like that. So, you know, if we have specific questions, I just had him log on from his home for that. Brooke is here to help discuss some of the budget numbers and things. So like I said, I really don't have a full presentation. One thing we did, I wanted to say is we met with the healthcare committee. I know we've talked about that a lot in some of the meetings. It was a really good representation. I think we were only missing a couple of people from that meeting, but we met with them last week, reviewed these recommendations that you see in the agenda packet. Feedback was overall very positive. I think employees have been so appreciative to be able to have a number of years with no increase in their premium or in their, contributions and their out-of-pocket costs. So, and the committee seemed to really understand when we dig into the numbers, they seem to really understand, you know, why we have to do what we do and where the money's being spent and how expensive this plan really is and how rich and good this plan really is. So it was a great meeting, lots of wonderful conversation. But with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, anybody got a question?
Michelle, I asked you earlier, I don't know if you have that data to share on a slide to compare, or maybe you can just tell us.
You know, I did not put it on a slide.
Okay.
I probably should have. That would have been the smart thing to do. But yeah.
Let me ask my question
go
so
ahead.
other commissioners can hear it. So one of the things I asked was, you know, how does our rates for individual, spouse, family compare with other employers sort of in our same sector and in our same size? Because I think one of the things, well, I'll just say, can you tell us that?
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned in your email looking at, you know, City of Lawrence, Shawnee County, KU, USD 497. I had most of that information. I pulled up Olathe. We seem to be, and this was our goal, right in the middle of what the averages are. You know, you've got one organization, and that's USD 497, that does not charge employees anything. So there is no cost to a full-time staff member for their coverage. But then when you get up into
Employee only.
Employee only, yes,
Because
employee
they're
only.
100% of dependents coverages.
Yes. So I think that's kind of the outlier. As Patrick, you're shaking your head, so you spent many years there, you know. A family plan is close to $1,600 a month for the employee to pay. But for the most part, we are our average, we're right in the middle, which is that I think that's been a goal of ours. To not, and same thing with our compensation, to be, to be right there and remain competitive. But maybe not at the top of the list, because I don't know how you sustain that year over year. So yeah, and I can share this, this research, at a later.
I do want to point out too, for commissioners, as Brooke put a slide at the end of this presentation related to the healthcare fund reserve and what that amount is going to be at, based off of the scenarios we have. If the commission goes with the recommended scenario 1, we anticipate that in 2027, the fund balance will be down to 13%. This is an issue that we will need to address as we move into the 2027 budget process. In addition to just from that scenario, the projections that that impacted us for this calendar year, for the budget, where we were prepared for a 2% increase in rates. Brooke is now re-estimating that up to 6%. So I do think that will impact what we put in that fund for re-estimate, and then what our charges are for 2027. Commissioners know this is really your first budget meeting of the year, when commissioners are asked to make a decision related to the first 5 months of the 2027 budget and the projections that we're going to be using based off the rates you picked today and what we plan to do. We will be setting our budget information.
So that chart on fund balance on levied funds, that's on the preferred option.
So on page 9 of 10 of the PowerPoint, we're showing both scenarios. You see scenario 1, and you see right below it, and you see scenario 2. So under scenario 1, the fund balance will be at 13.3. And if you go with scenario 2, the fund balance will be at 13.5.
Oh, I got it. Thanks.
And that's just a portion of the fund balance in the employee benefits fund that's allocated for healthcare. It doesn't impact the percentage that's allocated for CAPERS, Social Security, those issues. Am I wrong? Oh, thanks, Brooke. Okay, thank you. That's the totality of the fund balance for employee benefits fund.
And then have you finalized the stop loss quote yet?
Yeah, we just got that late yesterday afternoon. We had a quote come in from the incumbent, from Optum, and then we had a more competitive quote come in from Symetra. I've never heard. I've never worked with that company, but they actually came in with a more competitive quote. Optum came in at the rate cap, the increase cap, which was 40%. Symetra came in, it'll be around 30%. So moving to Symetra would save us, $200,000 over what we'd be paying with Optum.
So I think what staff is going to do, it would like to investigate both of those options, determine both of those are inside your estimate that it's included in front of the pan in front of you, make some determinations on if we feel comfortable moving to this new provider. So we've presented the chair with a revised motion that would authorize me to execute the stop loss contract. I'd be glad to report back to the commission what company we pick and what that amount is.
So are you saying it is baked into both scenarios, scenario 1 and scenario 2 currently?
It is. Yes.
Okay.
They estimated a 40% increase, just based on historical our claims this last year. And so, yeah, it's baked into both scenarios already.
Okay. So then if by chance, the team goes with Symetra, if that's what
Okay.
if that's what they're called,
Yeah.
Then we could potentially see a little bit of a reduction.
Possibly. I don't know if
Potentially.
we change the rates at this point. I think
Okay.
it would just help us prepare for the unfunded amount that we're going to experience in 2026.
Okay. And then we're also potentially seeing an increase in dental costs as well. Did I not see that in here? Dental?
No, well, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you're talking about the rates.
Yes.
I thought you were I thought you were
Oh.
talking about claims. But yeah, just a small increase in the dental rates
Okay.
too, which we haven't touched in a number of years. And we've also added some great benefits to that plan over the years too, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
What kind of feedback did you get from the healthcare committee, scenario 1 versus scenario 2?
You know, there wasn't strong feelings on either one. People had their phones out doing the math on the employee contributions, and how, you know, if I have a family plan, and I got a 6% increase, you know, and I'm making an extra $130 a month, but, you know, my extra contribution is, you know, $25 a month, I'm still coming out ahead. So it was conversations like that, but really no strong feelings one way or the other. And I think they just understand where we're at, and what the need of the organization is, and you know, how much the county is willing to take on out of their budget. And so yeah, no strong feelings either way, but support both ways. So
Thanks.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Brooke, Sarah sort of teed this up, and I want us to be thinking about fund balance. Do you have anything you want us to hear about? I mean, we've been very high in this fund and fund balance, and, you know, in past years, we've given a holiday because we had such a high fund balance. This is the lowest that I can ever remember us going. You know, I just want to understand our risks if we go super low on that fund.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the question, Commissioner. Around this time last year, well, in fact, on July 7th, staff gave a presentation, and we estimated that the fund balance might fall to a level to the tune of about $3.6 million. It was an intended move to reduce the fund balance to around the 20% mark. Staff did not expect a bad year on top of that. So we were already you know, our expenditures were outweighing our revenues, which we were chunking away big portions of that fund balance. This moved that timeline a little bit more forward. Now, I want to be very clear that, you know, with this fund, we have this balance in the fund, but there's also a health insurance operating account that acts as a clearinghouse where claims are being paid. Claims are averaging $1.2 million a month in 2025. So, you know, staff would want to make sure that we're maintaining at least around $2 million, $2.1 million in that fund, as we're making transfers into that fund from the levied fund that is in your budget book. But you know, we will have some very intentional conversations about how to get back up to that 20% mark. Based on the estimates that I have right now, that 20% is looking around $4.2 million. And that's not just for health insurance. So that's our OASDI, that's Medicare and Social Security, the payroll liability. This is also our retirement liability too. So this fund balance covers more than just, you know, potential medical claims. Another thing to note is that we also have a trust account, a savings account that is we are having a catastrophic year, and there's about $3.1 million in that fund. So, you know, while the fund balances are dipping below levels that staff would recommend to be maintained, you know, we will have to address it, but it's not a dire situation right now.
I'm
We will
more
have a
focused
conversation.
on 2027, just on the mill levy. I do think that one of the challenges that Brooke and I will have as we go in to the 2027 budget is how do we move some additional mill levy from somewhere else in the budget to the employee benefits fund? Because I don't think with this amount of claims, the current mill levy can sustain it. My hope is I can do that under a flat levy. That's the challenge you guys give me every year. But we did reduce the mill levy in this fund by 2 mills several years ago. We knew at a certain point, we hoped we would come in a nice soft landing and be able to rest at that. The cost of claims have gone up so enough that I think we're going to have to put a little mill levy back. And I'll have more information for you as we move into the 2027 budget on that.
You know, and something else that I want to mention, you know, we're constantly exploring programs that we can offer to our staff to help mitigate some of these costs. You know, the GLP-1s that has really hit our prescription plan really hard. And I think I put it in the AIR. Some employers have just opted to just cold turkey stop covering it. Other employers, like the city of Lawrence, for example, just put in a program where you have to enroll in this weight management, lifestyle management program in order to qualify, you know, for the GLP-1s. That's something Christy and I are exploring actively right now. We're talking to MedImpact, talking to Tria Health. What can you offer our staff as resources so they can be successful with this weight loss drug, but make long-term changes, you know, to their lifestyle and maintain their health. So they're not jumping on and off of these GLP-1s. And then you see the claims, you know, you've got these spikes and valleys. And we want people to maintain that good lifestyle, but you got to have some skin in the game, you know, to get these expensive drugs. So we're always trying to explore programs, you know, to help employees and to help our overall cost.
Have you done a cost to benefit for the county based on some of those higher cost pharmacy medications so that we can better understand some of the well, cost to benefit, but also comorbidities associated with some of those disease states and how some of those are trending higher? And then also when we look at maybe some of the well-being programs that can be blended with some of those medications, what are our current gaps and what are our current opportunities that can be presented back to the commission for us to consider so that we can maybe provide Sarah with an opportunity to take a look at either a flat mill and or, you know, if we truly do need to provide her guidance and not going in that particular direction.
Yeah. So as far as, you know, looking at an ROI for covering these medications, we have this conversation a lot with Willis. I've had this conversation with other employers that are covering the medications. It is still fairly new. I mean, weight loss medications have been around forever. At this price point, this is a surge across the world, really, but a huge surge in the nation. So I think your ROI is more cost avoidance. I'm avoiding that heart attack. I'm maybe avoiding that knee replacement because I've lost, you know, things that's hard. I mean, those are soft dollars, really. So it's hard to do. And we've talked to Willis about this.
And maybe it's something as we look at our new pharmacy benefit manager program for next year, we're going to be going back out for pharmacy benefit manager. I think that's maybe when we could try to get you know, some sort of analysis that will tell us, you know, are there cheaper methods of doing that? Can we provide some additional programs and how is that? And I think our PBM should be able to help us come up with that analysis.
And I know MedImpact, you know, it used to be MedTrack, which is it was a very small locally owned company. It moved to Elixir, got a little bit bigger. Now MedImpact is probably one of the fourth largest PBMs in the nation. They really are cutting edge. They come up with some great programs. So, you know, Christy and I have calls scheduled with them now to talk about what other programs they have, what's the cost to us for the program, you know, what are our outcomes of these programs. So we're really starting to do, you know, really starting to do that work. So that's definitely something we can come back, maybe even do a work session on and kind of talk about what we have found out and what, you know, what ideas we have.
I think
Yes.
particularly, I'm sorry, I want to answer the question about mill levy, if you don't mind. I want to be very clear. My hope is that I am reallocating from existing mill levy. I'm not proposing that we would increase our mill levy at this point. My hope is that I have some capacity in the general fund or the road and bridge fund that I could reallocate from that so that we could stay under a flat lid. That's my goal. But I think as we get closer to budget, I think we'll have more information on how that could go. One of the other options is we could just reallocate some one-time fund balance from either the general fund into this. That might sustain us enough that we don't need as much mill levy. I think it's just very early for us to know what levies are going to be like, what revenues are going to be like. So we'll continue to work on that over the next couple months. Thank you, commissioners.
Okay. And I would think also that Willis should maybe have some cost avoidance, even if they are soft dollars, but also county employee utilization data from the past and or like membership, even if we take a look at member experience. I mean, so what does that look like for the membership as a whole, and what the current benefit structure has actually meant to the membership? And then if that were to change, how would member experience change? Would you have escalations? Would you not? And then Willis should be able to maybe even provide some soft data in regards to prior engagement with United Healthcare since the county would not have any data to back that up.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely something, yeah, that we can do all
consider.
that work. Yep.
Okay.
You bet.
Thank you.
I think I just have one lingering question. Commissioners have covered most of the topics that are on my brain. I just wanted to go back to talking about sort of the Employee Healthcare Committee and their reaction and discussion about these proposed changes and understanding the full context, kind of doing some of the math on the spot you described. What's your guys' plan for, assuming we would move forward with this recommended change to plan change to the scenario 1 that's been described in our memo? Do y'all have a plan or thought about how you will sort of roll out the information and awareness about that? How to let employees know the ways they can, like a simplified formula that helps them figure that out? Just because, as was pointed out in the memo, we've been able to hold that cost flat. We've been able to give a holiday before, we've had some good, strong,
Very good stuff happen. Yeah.
years. And change is always hard to some degree. And so just thinking through about, in an organization of our size, how to make sure that information is put out consistently and that it's possible for folks to understand what the direct tangible impact will be.
So Christy has, since we met with you all and you approved the move to UHC, she decided to do weekly benefit updates instead of just bombarding employees with all the information at once. We've kind of been just throwing out those little bones, like how to search for your provider. And, so we're on this communication campaign. She has scheduled 3 different in-person open enrollment workshops. We're going to have one here. We'll go to out to the jail. We'll be in Public Works. People can come in. We'll have our voluntary benefits folks there that can help people with the voluntary stuff, but help them enroll. We've got communications prepared. The healthcare committee is on the horn and ready to push out that information. They took a packet, with them from the last meeting, and the instruction was share it. There's nothing in there that, other people can't see. So, talk about it. If you get strong pushback, if people are saying things, let us know so we can address those, through our communications, because, a department gets one employee asking, I guarantee you that's not the only employee that's wondering that. So,
Great. That's great to hear. Thank you. Any lingering questions, commissioners? Okay. Thank you both. We appreciate you. We'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Any takers? in the building? Anybody virtually, Sarah? Okay, we'll close public comment and bring this back to the commission for any thoughts, ideas, or motions. I'll just state that I really appreciate, I thought this memo was really thorough and helpful in understanding the full context of kind of all the different moving parts of what it is that's impacting the changes that we've seen and the changes that we need to adjust for. And I think that it makes sense to me, and to some degree there was an inevitability that we thought we could ride the wave a little longer or a little smoother, but so it goes. There are external factors. So I feel comfortable moving forward with scenario 1 as recommended, and think that there are some really positive changes to this plan, and hope that especially in the larger context of the American healthcare system at this distinct moment in time, that a 7.1% increase in employee and retiree contributions it's not nothing, but it's not too significant. And I know that many employers are facing much more significant and darker clouds, if you will, of how to absorb those costs. So I think we obviously still have some conversations to have later in this year about the 2027 budget, and in future years about how to make sure that the fund for this is really sustained. But these plan changes do make sense to me, and I feel confident that our staff has worked really hard and appreciate hearing about the detailed communications plan that has already been functioning well in the change to a new healthcare provider. And now these new plan changes, I feel comfortable with it, and am hopeful that we have some good news come budget time about what's possible.
I had one question, maybe Sarah can answer it. Retiree contributions, are those for people who retire before they're eligible for Medicaid?
We allow all of our employees that are eligible, anyone, they can choose to take it. What we have found is that at that level, it's not competitive with Part B, Part C, Part D plans. So most people migrate off at that point. So I would say the vast majority of our retirees on it are below age 65.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Just wanted to say that I was glad to see that we expanded mental health services with First Stop Health. So I think that that's a great expansion, especially the fact that it's only $3,300 annually. So I'm really hoping that individuals will take advantage of those telehealth services, especially for mental health.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the recommendation. I can't figure out the math, because it does feel like it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for our employees, and that I don't love. I wish there was a way, and maybe this just comes with being self-insured, that we could sort of pace this out over time, because we say 7.1%, but that is going to impact folks, and especially if you just joined us as a new employee, it's an immediate hit, and you didn't have any of the benefits of the prior years. So I don't know if there's a way to do that, and I'm just throwing this out that as if as we look through it, we've done everything from take holidays to jumping up 7%. I think my first year here we did another jump. So I think it's a great proposal. I'm just curious, is there other models that, for self-insured that don't sort of ride the roller coaster like this?
I would say some of it is because we've been doing this plan spend down of our reserve.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think if we had not been trying to do this plan spend down, we would have been looking at that ratio between the 90-10 for employee only and the 80-20 for dependent coverage, and seeing that we got out of whack. But because we were having such good plan years and we were trying to spend down that balance, we were reluctant to make adjustments in that stage that we probably would have done had we not been trying to spend down the balance. So, that's also something that as we go into the budget, I'd like more direction on. If the commission is comfortable with 90-10 and 80-20, then even next year, perhaps if we have a flat plan year, we may look for a small increase to get us our ratios back in place. So, and I would also say plan design changes are a part of that. In certain years, we're always trying to monitor where we are with our plan design changes so that hopefully we could do that. The last point I want to make is for even employees that are new here, they have benefited from higher starting wages that we put in by raising the minimums of our positions.
Thank
So
you
I
for
think
that.
that's
I
an
appreciate
important
that.
consideration.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. You do want to eliminate those peaks and valleys in what employees are paid, you don't want to come in with that 10, 12, 15% increase. So doing the smaller increases, even when not necessarily quote needed, it really levels out. It really levels that out. But that fund was just getting overfunded. And I think that that's on the heels of, Sarah before I came on board, there were some really bad plan years. Fund balance was low. She was scared because you see those numbers. And then we hit this wave of really good plan years. And she's like, no, I don't trust this. We're doing a 7% increase or a 6% increase. And it would come in that we came in under budget. So between the plan year ending 2019 to plan year end 2024, we added about $3.2 million, which was part of, why we took the actions we did. So we had some really good plan years in there.
And I'd say plan years are like that.
It'll always happen.
There's a lot of spike in plan years. You look at the number of high cost claimants that we had, there's no way I can moderate that out without having more reserves.
Thanks.
I see what you mean about the roller coaster, but I think for employees, it hasn't been. I think we've managed it on their end, which is also our end, pretty well. 3 years in a row of flat. Is it 3 years? It's the entire time I've been here, by the way. This is the first increase that I've had to vote on. In which case, like that 7% is not a big jump compared to if we had been 2 or 3% each of those years, we'd be closer to where this 14% would be also. And so I'm also thinking about that. Like I recognize it's not great to look at a larger percent increase, but that's not worse than where we would have been if we'd been just increasing. And I know why we weren't, because we had a fund balance that was high that we were trying to manage responsibly, and we did manage responsibly. So either of these scenarios actually sits all right with me. The 7% does not feel excessive at all, considering what I'm hearing from kind of other employers in the area and the kinds of increases that they're having to deal with of twice what either of our scenarios are talking about. So I appreciate the work, and I'm not surprised to be in this spot. I was hoping for the little bit softer landing as we kind of readjusted from that mill levy decrease that we had there. So it'll be an interesting budget season. I'm kind of on the fence. I hear support for scenario one. Scenario two doesn't bother me especially either. I don't love being a part of that, but and I don't know that it gains us a whole lot in terms of how we'd have to balance this with mill levy. So maybe there isn't enough gained from it to do that at the moment, but we won't have that full picture until we're a little further down the road.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of our, I think this is our reset year, I guess is what I would call it. We did what we intended to do, and we've kind of reset it now, and then we move forward. And maybe we change our methodology a little bit. And like Sarah said, even when we don't need that increase, we have a balanced plan year. Maybe we still we plan for that future and still do that 2%, and just compound that over and not have to have this spin down again.
And just if you'll remind us again, we're looking at scenario one, a 7% increase, scenario two, a 14% increase. And those are because we went with the UHC. If we had stayed with our provider, our plan before with Cigna, what would those?
It would have been about a 21% increase. Cause they were looking at 6 to yeah, 6 to 7% reduction in overall cost to switch to UHC. So.
And it's a good perspective for us to remember and also to communicate with employees.
Yeah.
That,
You know, and something else that I really like to do, when we're talking about the rates that because the numbers you've quoted are what employees are paying, but we also want staff to see how much the county is putting in and subsidizing. I mean, it's on our paychecks every time. Not everyone looks at their paychecks, it's because it's the same amount every 2 weeks. But in our benefit guides and in our communications, we like to have the charts in there that show the total rate, and then what do I pay and what does the county pay? And when you see those numbers right in front of you, you're like, wow, okay, I won't complain. That is, I mean, it's a nice benefit.
that's part of what makes me comfortable with scenario 2
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. And something else I want to do going forward is total compensation statements. We're shopping for new HRIS system and payroll. I really want to, I want a system that can help produce those total compensation statements, because, benefits could add $40,000 to your compensation. So I think that's eye-opening. I used to do it at the city when I was there. We just haven't had the capacity. Our system doesn't have the capacity to do that, but that's definitely on my list of wants for a new system. So.
Especially when it comes to year-end goals or at times when you're setting priorities and goals, it's really important to be able to go in and set your goals and also see your entire compensation package and see what the county is contributing and where you sit, and then have the opportunity to set your goals and for all sides to see the value and to be valued in that process. And I agree. I think that is it's really a good investment, but it also really shows the individual how they're valued. And I think all parties can then participate in a meaningful way.
Yep.
All right, commissioners, before moving on to a motion, and I'll go ahead and make the motion since I haven't updated one based on staff getting that stop loss information by today. I just want to check in and see, I've heard Commissioner Willie indicate that there's some interest for her in possibly in entertaining scenario 2. Scenario 1 is what's recommended in our staff memo. I just want to check in with other commissioners to see if anybody has a strong opinion about feeling for pitch about scenario 2 or not.
Well, I was going to say scenario 1.
Okay.
I think Commissioner Willie hit it on it for me, that the impact to our fund balance, never going to say it's not significant, but as I look at sort of what that means and sort of weigh against a 14% increase for our employees, I'm more comfortable with scenario 1.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the good discussion, commissioners. Thank you, Michelle and Brooke, for all the information. I move to approve the recommended plan design and contribution rates for the Douglas County Healthcare Plan for 2026-2027 plan year, and authorize the county administrator to sign the stop loss insurance contract.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda item this evening, commissioners. And with that, we will move on to appointments. Anybody got anything queued up to talk about?
Think I have any appointments for you right now.
I'll just share with commissioners that Commissioner Willie and I did meet and are continuing to work on Planning Commission. Interestingly, I've had a number of people I've reached out to. We had exciting, and they turned us down. So I think we're continuing to develop a list. I know we've each had some meetings here and there, and we'll continue to. We haven't really set a deadline date for us yet, but I expect it to be soon, as we need to appoint by the end of May, I think. Is that correct?
There's a lot of interest, including currently serving folks, and so I'm excited for that process, which we will hopefully have a recommendation back before too terribly long. And it's possible that it might be a list that we draw from for filling some other positions also for folks that if you, I often sell this, if you don't want this commitment, how about the commitment behind door number 2?
Okay, great. Thanks for those updates. We'll move on to Commissioner and Administrator Miscellaneous and start with Sarah's memo.
Thanks, commissioners. Just want to remind commissioners that Judge Sally Picorni is retiring, and so her retirement reception's in this room on Friday. Also, just reminding commissioners that next week we have our judges luncheon, so want to make sure you've got that on your calendars. Carrie already promoted County Government Discovery Day, which we're all very excited about. It'd be great to have commissioners there. We get a lot of public coming out to see all of our fun stuff. Next week, we do have a work session with the Extension Council at 4. And that's all I have for you, commissioners.
Thank you, Sarah. I have a couple miscellaneous things. One, just a quick note to say that 3 of us commissioners got to attend the LDCFM Awards ceremony last Friday, and it's my second year attending, and it's just a really lovely event that puts very squarely in the spotlight how critical and life-saving and hugely impactful the work of that organization does. And so it was really cool and always an honor. And I'm glad they've been able to make that a tradition again. And then I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight that Haskell Wetlands Day and a bunch of activities this week are happening. So just a note for other commissioners, if you haven't seen that, there's still activities going on through the rest of the week. I am hoping to attend some of them on Friday in particular. So if anybody else is planning to attend any of those, let Robin know, just in case we need to notice it. I think Commissioner Willie and I might both show up at the same event on Friday. So I just wanted to highlight that and encourage the public to check it out because they've got, they really packed the week full of stuff, and I've been sad to miss most of it so far, but it seems like it's been cool. And then one other note about Haskell is that we have, as commissioners, received some correspondence, I think possibly individually and collectively, from folks that continue to be concerned about sort of the status of funding and administrative capacity and support for Haskell Indian Nations University, and just wanted to let commissioners know that I am in some active conversations about that, and also Sarah and I and Commissioner Dorsey will be going at the end of this month to DC with members of the city of Lawrence and from the chamber and the University of Kansas, and that's definitely a priority on our list to be able to talk with any Congress people that we get to meet with, or any other relevant agencies that we might meet with while we're there, and certainly welcome any other thoughts or information or insight you might have from individual conversations you're having. Please feel free to reach out to me directly or talk with Sarah to make sure we're sort of as up to date about that as possible, and we can be good, effective advocates to amplify some of that need. So I just wanted to give a brief update about that. And then the other thing I wanted to note is, and sort of I ask for blessing of, is that the National Association of Counties, NACO's annual conference is happening in July, and I would like to attend that. And it's not legislative focused, it's much more content driven, and a lot of they haven't released full agenda yet, but what seems like some pretty cool tracts of just good presentation and policy level workshops that I'm excited for. And then also at least one full day dedicated to the policy steering committee that I serve on. So I just want to check in with commissioners and see if anybody has any concerns or worries about me moving forward with booking travel to go to that conference. And then also invite that if other commissioners are interested in the NACO conference, to please check it out. I think Sarah and I went to their summer conference several years back when it was in Colorado, and I think we both felt surprised, honestly, at how robust and really thorough some of the information and workshops were. So I highly encourage, if other commissioners have interest, it will literally start the day after we end budget. So if you want to go, we can go hop on a plane together right after budget and spend a few more days in New Orleans in July. So that's the other caveat.
I do highly recommend it though for commissioners. I do think they do a really good job of picking really substantive topics. So maybe you don't want July in New Orleans, but maybe the year after or something like that. It might be something to think about.
I lived in Houston for 3 years, so I know what the weather's like.
I've really appreciated, Commissioner Reed, that you've stayed connected with NACO. I think it's really powerful that we continue to help use their voice for issues that we care about, and especially around the legislative agenda things that they're working on in that committee that you're on. So I really appreciate that you've done that. If do you see value in having more than one of us there? Are there breakout sessions that you're feeling like there aren't enough that you can get to? Because otherwise, I'm happy to just keep having you attending that. But I just wanted if you had some feedback.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I think, what I've learned with, they have a real bare bones agenda that kind of tells you generally what blocks of time will be spent on, but it's not too filled out yet. And I think it'll probably be a little bit more time until it is. I think it's a little bit of waiting and seeing how this current congressional session continues to go for a couple more months. And so I'd say that it'll probably be, honestly, probably after the early bird registration deadline passes, which is in another few weeks, early May, I think. It'll probably be after that a fully published agenda is out there. So, I would, I'm going to go no matter what, since nobody here is objecting to it. And I will make the most of it. And I just think it's an interesting opportunity if any of you are interested in connecting with peers or people in peer positions in other communities and the topics that might generally be discussed. I think it'll probably be well worth it, even if we don't know exactly what all the tracts will be going into it. So check it out and consider it. Like I said, I think it's first or second week of May is when that early bird registration is over. So that's my goal, is to make it as cheap as possible.
You had also mentioned the communication around Haskell and the accreditation, and I had reached out when we first got that to Lucy Hullett at Senator Moran's office. And so we've had some email exchanges about that and are still working to schedule a further conversation. But yeah, they're very aware of what we think about that, and everybody can keep working on them too.
Anything else for the good of the order, commissioners?
I have a couple things. First, the Eudora Library Board bill, which we've been fiddling with for the last 3 months, was signed by the governor on Monday at 1 o'clock, to be exact. So we've got that out of the way now. Eudora and Eudora Township have to negotiate an agreement which basically lays out all the exact things that are going to happen. The bill was pretty general in that regard, so they can look forward to negotiating that over the next few months, because the bill got amended to make the election in odd number years. So it won't be this year, it'll be next year, and everybody's appointed through that time. So it should, and I suspect everybody on the board will run for election. That's a small town. You only have so many people. Secondly, I wanted to correct something I said 2 or 3 weeks ago when we were talking about the pilot program on the Lawrence Penance issue. What I should have said was a majority of constituents who talked to me were opposed to that pilot program. Not all constituents were opposed, because I got a letter from somebody after the vote who said, I'm a constituent and I'm for it. So you misspoke. So I want to correct that.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorsey. Other commissioners have anything to mention?
We did raise 2 issues during the consent agenda, one about the process around fence viewing, and the other around a conversation for local preference policy. And I don't know if the commission wants to take those up at some point, when we would want to do that.
I think it's important, maybe if we do want to talk about fence policy, we'll start with that one, to gather some more information. It's not just going out and looking at the fence. You know, there's a lot there that's entailed in that. So I mean, if we do, I remember when we decided to hire Mr. Hurd to do that work for us. I remember I talked to some other commissioners prior to doing that and heard their experience. And based on their experience, I was happy to hire Mr. Hurd to do that because of what I understood. So I just thought it might be good for Sarah to maybe provide some background and talk to, get Mr. Hurd's bill, understand what things he did to get to that number. And then we would have to figure out like who's going to do that in the future and then make that decision. So I don't know if that's helpful to us as a body.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm open to it. I mean, I'll be honest and say I don't, I have a pretty strong sense that I want to keep things the way they are because I think that there is value in a well-versed lawyer in a very specific and narrowly defined and not statutorily updated for 150 plus years law that does have some real particularities to it that it's not that I don't have confidence that we could all comprehend it, but I have a hunch that we would still be seeking legal counsel in many instances based on the different factors that have to be considered, interviews that have to be conducted and things that I understand about the process. So I'm open to having a further conversation about it and directing staff to do a little bit more background work on it. But I also say, commissioners, that I don't love to give staff what feels like busy work if it doesn't feel like there's a strong sense of the majority of the commission is uncomfortable with how this one particular process is going. So I guess I would want to, we've heard from Commissioner Dorsey that there's some interest in considering that we reconsider it and do it a different way. I would like to know if there are two other commissioners that have a strong feeling that it's worth dissecting more and sort of figuring out more particularities about before we direct staff.
You're talking about the fence viewing, right?
Yep.
I think we have 4 or 5 years to think about it before the next one
Maybe just
comes up.
You never know.
The
Could be
roll of
3
the
months.
dice. It's a conflict between neighbors. It's always going to be a high emotion issue, financial issue, promises given and received or heard or misheard. And I, even though I'm Commissioner Dorsey, that I don't like paying attorneys for anything I don't have to. That may have come up here before. But anyway, I think that it's probably a reasonable process, for when it comes up to have some outside counsel to kind of speak to both parties and come up with something that is fair and meets the statutes and moves forward.
My only concern was it's a $5,000 issue and we're spending $3,000 to negotiate it, if you will.
Possibly. We don't have the bill yet, so.
Yeah, and we don't have a choice. So ultimately, because of the statute, if the neighbors are in disagreement, it could come to us. And the fence could be larger and more expensive. So it just depends.
Based on my analysis the first time, I'm not interested in, getting all suited up and going out and walking the entire fence line. And quite honestly, Mr. Hurt, when we talked about it the first time, has the right experience to look at 3-wire barbed fence. And that is not my expertise and would not feel comfortable making that decision and would rely on some of you all who have more on that. So having someone who both understood the law, was willing to go talk to it and deal with the situation that I think would be a bit challenging for 5 people to talk about at the same time, seemed like a good plan to me. So I'm comfortable with what we do. Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with fences and building fences, but I'm not comfortable with the law. So I think I'm okay with the process too.
And being that I also think one of us has to bring it forward to Sarah to say that we have a constituent that has a concern. One of us would have potentially a conflict of interest. And so in this case, I was the individual that I needed to bring it to Sarah and say that I had received a concern and what do I do with a fence dispute? And so, she said, well, we have someone that handles this. And so let's follow the process. And we were able to follow the process and was able to engage the neighbors and conduct his review and then provide the findings. So not knowing that it was a almost 150-year-old law on the books or statute on the books, which is absolutely fascinating. $7 back then still does not seem like it is the right amount of funding for someone to do that type of work because I think I submitted this to you or I brought it up latter part of 2025 when the concern actually came forward. And so it's taken quite some time for it to come to resolution. So in the end, I mean, $3,000, if it ends up being somewhat closer to $3,000, it might actually be a valuable amount of money for actually the type of resolution that we're actually receiving for both of these neighbors.
Yeah, as Commissioner Anderson pointed out, at least one of these individuals didn't have an email, was hard to contact, hard to get a hold of. So interviews had to happen, a lot of phone calls, a lot of repeat. This is a high touch activity when they come up.
All right, commissioners, I think I'm hearing a consensus that a majority of not consensus, I'm hearing that a majority of the commission feels comfortable with the process as is. And so for me, that means that there is no additional work to ask for staff to come back with related to this. And we, maybe we can all, wager our own bets on how long it'll be before the next one lands on our agenda. Just kidding. Okay, the other item that was brought up as just a matter of topic from consent agenda items pulled was the possibility of a local preference policy. And I think that Commissioner Dorsey, I think you've raised questions related to this and a number of agenda items of varying degrees of money being spent. And so I think it is a topic for us to discuss as a commission. We have an upcoming, retreat time set for ourselves. And I think that could be a good topic of discussion there because it has come up a few times and what would those particularities look like? And so that's my suggestion is that would be a good opportunity to talk about it. I'm open to other commissioners' thoughts.
Yeah, I'm fine talking about it later. I do think like sometimes we have agreements across the state that give us the best option and that those have been bid on and been opened up. Sometimes it's regional, sometimes it's state. So just each time we get to those to fully understand which process we used to get the best deal would be helpful.
Any other thoughts on that topic, commissioners, for now? Okay. Any other miscellaneous items, news, exciting announcements for the good of the order?
I just wanted to mention that Evergy reached out to me. And so we had an introduction meeting just to kind of chat about some of the most recent changes that they've had to some of their policies. And one of the things that they mentioned is that they have a new agreement around larger entities that are generating power. And so they call it the power agreement. And so I think it leads into the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago before we went into our break, which was around the data center moratorium. And so they did say that they have several larger entities in a queue that they are looking at. And so For an entity to be interested in partnering with Evergy, they do have to pay $200,000 as a down payment or as a deposit. And then they can begin a process of understanding what it would look like to potentially, if it is a data center, to potentially look at what that would look like to have a data center in this particular region and partner with Evergy. And so I think those conversations are going to be potentially top of mind with this commission as we take a look at resources and the moratorium that you said that you're probably going to bring forward in the future.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? Okay, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.